Hello everyone and welcome to the 2022 FIDE Chess.com Women's Speed Chess Championship. This is the online tournament for women, titled Women, that is, in the world, with a prize fund over $70,000. I hope you are as excited as I am. I am Women International Master Anna Kazani, and today we have another exciting matchup planned. Before we have a look at today's matchup, let's have a look at the bracket, because last match was between Alexandra Kostyniuk and Antoaneta Stefanova, and Alexandra Kostyniuk took the win and advanced in the next stage of the bracket with a convincing score of 15.5 to 10.5. And there are many more exciting matches planned in the near future. Today, we have two amazing players as well. We have Kateryna Lagno, Grandmaster, playing against women Grandmaster Vantika Agrawal. Vantika won the first qualifier of the Women's Speed Chess Championship, which was a great result, and she performed super well. So I'm really looking forward to this matchup today. And I hope you are going to enjoy it as much as we will. Before the games will start, we have our insights that tell us how the match might progress, because we see that Vantika has a big portion of games of 3,198 games, whereas Kateryna has played 739 games on chess.com in Blitz. So that's quite a big difference. And we see that the average accuracy of Kateryna is an amazing score of 87%, which is quite a big score, especially when you're considering that this is Blitz. And we also see that Vantika has a big disadvantage because of the losses by flag. She has a high score there where you don't want to have a high score. So let's see how she will perform in this match, because you might not be flagging every single game, but there's still 1 second increment in the games, and we'll have to see how she will handle the time trouble. Let's have a look at the format of this event, because the Speed Chess Championship is quite a interesting format and really exciting one as well. We will first start with the 5+1 section of 90 minutes, so 1.5 hours of 5+1, followed by an hour of 3+1, and then finally we'll have 30 minutes of 1+1. So that means a lot of games are going to be played, and especially in Bullet, it will all come down to that stage, because that's where you can either come back from a disadvantage or you'll be able to get a big lead. So yeah, some really exciting format. Let's have a look at the Smarter Chess predictions provided by chessgoals.com. We see that the ratings are pretty close to each other. Kateryna has a big advantage in the Blitz and Bullet, but well, big advantage, not very big, but a slight advantage. And we can see in the scores that Kateryna will, well, according to Smarter Chess, will be scoring 6 points against 3. And the Bullet is supposed to be, according to Smarter Chess, to be very close. So I'm really looking forward to see how this match will develop as the players are getting ready. And yeah, I hope you guys are excited for this amazing matchup. Both players are super strong. We all know Kateryna Lagno as one of the strongest Blitz and Rapid players. She has become the women's world champion several times in those time formats. And Vantika is a really strong player from India. She won with her team the online Olympiad that was held in 2020. So that's really exciting. And she has had several great performances in many tournaments, earning her the Women Grandmaster title. She is a really talented player, so she has a really nice future ahead. So this match will be really interesting. We will see a very experienced player against the young, talented player. So really excited to see this match develop. The players are getting ready, and we will soon start with this exciting match. We're still waiting for the players to get ready. Let's have a look. Okay, the games are about to start. Let's have a look. What are your predictions, guys, in the chat? Oh, the game just started, actually. Let's have a look. And the game started with 1e4. Kateryna is playing with the white pieces, and Vantika replied with the Sicilian. Let's see which line they will end up going to. Okay. Okay, this is the Knight Earth. Okay. I love seeing those exciting openings, you know? We've seen too many, you know, like London type of openings in our matches recently, but it makes me really happy to see an exciting opening like the Sicilian. But Kateryna is playing a really interesting line where she is moving the knight from d4 all the way back to d2, and the idea is that she might want to put the knight on c4 and be able to put pressure on the pawn d6 right there. So really interesting line, and let's see how Vantika is going to respond to this. Okay, she's taking her time here. It's quite an unusual line, so I can imagine that she's a bit surprised by this. One of the moves, obviously, oh, she goes for knight to g4, which makes a lot of sense because now the bishop doesn't have many squares to escape to, actually none. So it looks like white is going to lose a pair of bishops already. But in return, so for example, if Kateryna goes for knight to c4, you will trade off this bishop, but the knight will end up on e3. And you'll be able to control the squares d5 and f5 with your knight. And that will benefit white a lot. And it almost looks like a Sveshnikov where typically your knight starts on a3 and then tries to get around and try to get to e3 in another way. But here your knight is already on e3, so that could give you a big advantage already. And Vantika decided to castle short, which makes a lot of sense. And a4 is a typical move where you typically want to stop the move b5. It doesn't stop black from playing b6 and develop the bishop on b7, but it is an active move, and b5 can be really annoying at times. So here we see Kateryna going for knight c to d5, and look at how beautifully placed the knights are in the center. And there's nothing you can do about this, because if you decide to take one knight, the other one will jump. And bishop g5 is a very strong move by Vantika. She's trying to destroy this knight power in the center, where if she's able to take on e3, if you, for example, decide to take with the pawn, which is not so great, black will be able to capture the knight, or either play knight e7 to capture with the knight on d5. So that gives black a lot of opportunities. Let's see if she decides to take on e3 already. She doesn't have to do it right away, but obviously it was her idea. So let's see if she decides to do it right away. Okay, she goes for knight e7 first. She wants to trade off the knights, obviously, but if you take here with the knight on d5 right now, then the knight takes d5, and it might be interesting to see if there will be opposite color bishops. But instead, Kateryna takes on e7 right away, and then she puts the knight on d5. So here, as I was saying, after bishop d5, queen takes d5, we'll have an opposite color bishop position, and it's interesting to see that we will have to see how Vantika likes that position, because this bishop on g5, it looks pretty well placed, and it might be able to do, it might feel like it can do a lot, but in reality, which access points do you have with that bishop? I'm not entirely sure. So she might not consider taking on she might not do it after all. Queen d8. Okay, she decides to not take just yet, which makes a lot of sense. There's no rush in taking, but I'm curious to see where this bishop will land, because on g5 it looks pretty nice over there, but it's not doing much. Rook c8, rook c8 has been played, very natural developing move, and one of the main ideas here for black would be to play f5, obviously, to destroy the center of white. And white could simply reply by playing f3 and simply strengthen the center a bit more. So let's see how Kateryna will continue here, because what are the ideas of white? Do you want to play f4 right here? Could be a move to consider, but instead she goes for the positional move, bishop g4. She wants to eliminate the bishop, so she'll have a much better knight than this bishop on g5. So that is a very strong positional move, and obviously Fantika does not want to treat that herself, because if Kateryna takes on e6 herself, f takes e6 will follow, and then the knight will have to leave from this beautiful square. So rook c5 is putting pressure on this knight on d5. You're not able to win a pawn just yet, but it could help a lot in the future. And she might want to play b5 over in her next move. Let's see what Kateryna decides to do in this position, because it's not so clear. b4 makes a lot of sense because the pawn on c3 is defended by the knight, so the rook will not be able to capture that. However, rook c4 might be interesting, attacking the pawn on e4. Let's see. The time difference is not so big. Kateryna had quite an advantage at first, but she has been spending her time as well. So, okay, she goes rook c4. Now it's really easy for white to defend here. For example, a move that comes to mind is queen d3. So that way you'll be able to defend the pawn on e4 as well as attack the rook. But that might allow black to play at b5. So that's interesting. She's taking her time, okay. The funny part is obviously you want to keep defending your bishop over here, but if you play queen d3, you are not afraid of losing that bishop because queen takes c4 is dropping the rook. And I don't see a good resource for black in that position other than just dropping the rook back or play b5 to defend the rook. Instead, she goes for rook e1, defending the pawn differently, which makes a lot of sense. But it does mean that f4 is pretty much out of question. She might want to, like at some point, she might consider playing g3, f4, but that would be a really long-term plan as you don't want to expose your king just yet. Fantika decided to take on d5 after all. I have a feeling she wants to capture this pawn on c3, but she might be able to take it slowly, and she goes for queen c7. What a beautiful move. She does not want to lose the pawn on b7, which is really impressive that she noticed she needs to defend that pawn first, and there's so much pressure on this pawn on c3 that she'll win that anyway. So really impressive play by her. Kateryna is strengthening the attack on the d6 pawn, which is the main target in this position. So let's see if Fantika is going to either defend that or will she decide to capture the c3 pawn anyways. Okay, Fantika down to 1 minute on the clock. Okay, she decides to play rook d8 after all. I mean, why not? There's still a lot of tension over here, and Kateryna might be able to play rook d3 for the simple reason that after rook takes c3, rook takes c3, queen takes c3, the pawn b7 will drop anyway. So that would make a lot of sense. But instead, she goes for g3. She does not want to defend the pawn. Instead, she wants to go for the aggressive f4. After all, she still wants to go for it. And here it makes a lot of sense because after f4, you can't take. You can't take because there's a bishop on g5 hanging. Oh, instead she goes for h4. Okay. She goes for h4, and where does this bishop go to? You don't want to go to h6 because it will be very difficult to get the bishop back in the game. But it does look good there as you're defending the square c1. But instead, she goes bishop e7, and it seems like Fantika is simply up a pawn. The only problem is that this pawn is on d6, and you're not able to push that whatsoever. But it will be really nice to have long-term, obviously. This is a small advantage. And Kateryna is deciding to make it a bit more complicated, and Fantika goes for the move d5. After e takes e5, she's probably looking at the move bishop takes b4. but she's on 9 seconds now. She needs to speed up a lot, and the position is not that clear just yet. As Kateryna still has some counterplay, especially with this pawn on h5. There's still some tension happening on the king side, so this time difference might hurt Vantika, but let's see how she will handle it, as Kateryna is taking her time in this situation, which makes a lot of sense. If you have the time, you were better off spending that time a little bit. Okay, let's see. Queen b5. e4. What a strong move. She's preparing the move e3, because if f takes e3, she'll be able to take on g3, and she does it anyways. The king is defending the pawn on g3. Queen e5. What a play by Vantika. She had the beautiful move bishop d6, attacking the pawn on g3, but instead, I mean, she has only 4 seconds of time. She plays rook d6, which makes a lot of sense, but this might make it a bit difficult for her to convert. But rook f1 is simply dropping the pawn d5, and she's not taking it. Oh, the time pressure is real, and Kateryna is down to almost 20 seconds now. This game might just end in a draw, because the players are in time trouble, and there's an opposite color bishop endgame with the queens on the board. Anything can still happen, but it looks like we are leaning to a draw. Queen e5 still trying to create some threats, because bishop d6 is still in the air. Okay, and as I said, we are now in a opposite color bishop endgame with the queens off the board, and it will be very difficult to lose this for both sides. But I have to be careful with what I say, because you never know what happens. You never know. There's still around 5 seconds, both of them, and this should be a simple draw. Okay, she's not taking on d5 because of the check on e4. Bishop e4 check, and you'll just capture that pawn. And it looks like we have a draw in this position. There we go. First game ended in a draw. Vantika had a phenomenal game. She played super well, but in time trouble, she was not able to convert that advantage. But what a great game by Vantika. And Kateryna also played really well, but Vantika played really well, and she got the great advantage early on in the game. Wow. Even if Vantika was not really aware of what to do in the opening, she was not playing very quickly. She handled it really well. Let's have a look how this game develops, as we have a Grunfeld defense. Bishop b5 check. Will she play knight c6? Will she play bishop d7? Let's have a look. Okay, she goes for bishop d7. There's a lot of tension in this opening happening on the pawn on d4. So let's see how Kateryna will be able to make use of that, or Vantika will be able to have a beautiful center. Let's see how the game will develop. Okay, she decides to go bishop e2. She's not trading off the bishops, which is an interesting decision. It makes sense, because if you take on d7 yourself, you allow black to develop another piece, and perhaps she wants to keep the bishops on the board. Okay, so what is black going to do now? Do you want to play knight c6? But it might be difficult to face d5 after that, as you might be able to play knight e5. Actually, there's a pawn on c3 hanging. That's probably a bigger concern, so you don't want to play d5 just yet. Okay, we see bishop g4 on the board, so that's basically threatening to take on f3, and then you're able to capture the pawn on d4. Let's have a look how Vantika will reply to this. Probably one of the main moves that comes to mind is bishop e3, simply to defend that pawn on d4. Well, e5 could be another idea, but I'm not a huge fan of moving a pawn like that twice in the opening from e4 to e5, because it weakens a lot of squares, and you want to control the center as much as possible, and it might be too much to push the pawn to e5 already. So It is one of the ways to defend that pawn on d4, to cut, to stop the bishop from attacking the pawn on d4, but it might not be an ideal one. The players are spending quite some time already, which is a bit surprising, but I can imagine if you're in a position where you're not too familiar, what you're not too familiar with, this could happen. Okay, Fantika is down to 3 minutes. What does she have in mind? Okay, she goes for bishop e3, which is a really logical move. Perhaps she was considering other moves as well and calculating if it would work with the capture on f3, because it might not be such a big deal to lose that pawn on d4 if you have like some huge compensation, but it seems like she was not too convinced, and now she played bishop e3, and Kateryna replied with knight c6, putting more pressure on that pawn. And as I mentioned before, the problem is that you can't push this pawn because of bishop takes c3 check, and you will lose the exchange. So now you'll have to think of something else. And once again, e5 comes to mind, but you don't want to play that. You don't want to play the move e5. It weakens so many light squares. She does it, and it seems like she is pretty much forced to play this, but you don't want to allow black to control the light squares. So now we see capture on d4, and look how weak those light squares are. Imagine if knight b4, knight d5 will occur. That would be fantastic for black. It's another story of how black will be able to make use of this small advantage, but this looks already pretty good for black. Queen d2, all right. Offering the trade of queens. This is a little bit, it works with knight takes d2. It still works. This pawn is defended by the bishop, but it feels like something's loose here. Like black attacks the pawn once again with rook d8. You'll have to defend. It still works, but it feels like something's wrong with this position from white's perspective. All right, f6. F6 is a really good move to eliminate the center, especially removing this pawn from e5, because after e takes f6, bishop takes f6, the pawn on d4 will be very vulnerable. And with the bishop opening up on that diagonal, this pawn will become a huge target. So Fantika did decide to take on f6, but bishop takes f6, and white has a long-term problem. Fantika decides to play rook ab1, attacking that pawn on b7. So after a move like b6, which makes a lot of sense, you'll be able to put pressure on the knight that will be hanging over there. So that's why Kateryna plays rook d7 instead, because you want to have this protection for the knight over here. So let's see how Fantika decides to continue here, because it's not so simple. She's trying to find a way to find some threats and targets in this position, but it's not so simple. Perhaps the move you could consider is h4, to simply play h5 and try to create some threats on the king side, but instead she goes for the move d5. What a nice move, because after rook takes d5, suddenly you can take that pawn on b7, and that will be an amazing trade for Fantika, because that pawn on d4 once again was a really weak pawn. And now she's able to trade the pawn and also have the rook on the 7th rank. She might have great chances in this game, but rook a5, and suddenly this pawn is undefended. Oh, this becomes quite sharp. It doesn't look like this game could be sharp ever, but with the move rook c1, suddenly rook c8 becomes a problem. So Kateryna takes on a2 with check, so that's something Fantika needs to deal with first. But what do you do in this position now? Because if the knight moves, you'll face rook c8. I'm guessing knight d8 is one of the main moves to consider here, because you'll be able to block this check from the rook infiltrating on c8. So let's see what she decides to do. You can also consider playing rook a1 to trade off the rooks and not having to deal with that threat whatsoever. But what might be worrying is that after rook takes, bishop takes, there's rook c7. You can take the pawn right away, but you can also just attack the knight and capture that pawn right away after that. But I have to know that Vantika is down to 36 seconds. So that's quite a big difference compared to Kateryna, who has over 2 minutes on her clock. So once again, Vantika down on the clock, but I have to say her chess is phenomenal. She's playing really well. So if she's able to play around the same level when she is in the time scramble, she will be able to do well in this match. Let's see how she will do. Okay, well, I was going to say in this game, but with the rooks off the board now and the pawns on the same side of the board, I don't think there's much crazy to happen here. And they agree to a draw. Wow, another draw. Another draw over here. Both players are playing really well. And the games are pretty clean as well. Let's see how they're going to continue in this game as we are back to the knight erf, and Kateryna is playing knight f3 again. She's playing the same line, and I have a feeling Vantika will go for the same line that she played in the first game because, well, it turned out pretty great for her. But I have to admit, Kateryna had a really nice setup. It's a bit hard to say where things went wrong for Kateryna in the first game because she ended up having a worse position. But it's safe to say that Vantika had a great position and she was able to play comfortably there. All right, we see the knights again, very strong in the center. At least Vantika this time is able to save some time on the clock because in the first game she was trying to figure out what to do. So that saves her some time as the match progresses, of course, but she's still down on the clock and Kateryna knows what she's doing in this line. Okay, bishop e6 has been played and now bishop c4. Okay, interesting way. I believe in the first game the bishop ended up on e2 and trying to trade the light squared bishops off. So it seems like Kateryna has now decided to take a different approach. And wow, she takes on e7 right away. Bishop d5, she's not trading the bishops right away. She's playing bishop d5. What a strong move. Because now if black takes, you'll be able to play knight takes d5. And I mean, your knight is beautifully placed. Rook a7. Okay, very logical move, obviously. But now how is white going to proceed? Because white has a really nice position, but as black plays knight d7, this knight will be able to join the game as well. And white needs to play very direct and concrete to make use of the fact that white has a really nice position. a4 has been played. Obviously, the move b takes a4 is out of, well, actually, I wanted to say out of the question for the simple reason, and she does it. I was going to say I need to be careful with those statements because what I was going to explain is that if you take rook takes a4 and you might have a permanent weakness on a6. However, as I noticed that after rook takes a6, there might be a move like knight b6 and that might level things up a little bit and black might be able to consolidate there. But typically you don't want to take on a4 because you create your own weakness on a6. So let's see if Kateryna decides to take. She's spending quite some time. I think she's concerned about this move knight b6, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, she decides to take it. Rook takes a4. And now knight b6 is a very logical move because, well, it's a fork. It's not really like we are winning material, but at least you'll be able to get rid of some material on here in the center. Okay, both players are spending some time on this move. So let's see what Vantika is thinking. But maybe she wants to play a move like a5, although that might hurt because of knight c4. And yeah, it's difficult to deal with this pawn because you're not able to push that almost ever because of this rook on a4. And because of the pawns on the queen side, it will be very difficult to make progress over here. And she goes knight b6. So now rook a5, stopping the pawn even more, and also strengthening the bishop on d5. Now the question is, do you want to take on d5 or no? Yes or no? Because the logical, obviously, like we are all familiar with the fact that we want to capture the bishop with our knights. But then the problem is that after, for example, I don't even know. I think pawn takes d5 is already sufficient to have a really nice position, but perhaps it makes more sense to take with the knight for the simple reason that your knight is strong on d5 and you want to capture with a piece on d5. But it's clear that white has a really nice position, and this is pretty difficult to deal with for black. Vantika goes for queen c7. She is probably trying to okay, so what she was trying here, she set up the threat of knight takes d5. She set up this threat because the rook was undefended on a5, and that's why Kateryna played the move queen to d2 to defend that rook on a5, which was a really sneaky move, this queen c7 move. Okay, so Vantika is down to 1 minute and 40 seconds. She takes on d5 with the bishop, which makes a lot of sense because, well, as I mentioned previously, this bishop will not be as great if knight takes d5 will happen. So bishop takes d5, and this might be a difficult endgame for Vantika because Kateryna has an amazing position. After knight takes d5, there will be knight takes d5, I believe, and after rook takes d5, there will be huge pressure on that pawn on d6. Do you have the tricky move knight c4 here? I mean, it does. I don't think it does much, but the fact that the move is there is pretty interesting. And it forces you to trade off the queens off the board. And this might benefit Vantika as since if the queens will be off the board, then it will be easier for black to consolidate here. I have a feeling that that might happen. She's spending her time here. So the fact that she's not taking right away, it tells that she is seeing this move knight c4 at least. Let's see if she decides to do it. Because the problem is if you take on d5, then you'll have a long-term problem. And she plays knight c4. She does it. Wow. Knight c4. And now you're pretty much forced to take, obviously, because by playing knight c4, not only are you attacking the queen, you're also attacking that rook on a5, and the queen is also looking right at that rook. So white is pretty much forced to trade queens over here in a kind of artificial way. But this might be really interesting because after knight takes c7, knight takes d2, you're attacking the rook over here. The pawn is under attack as well. And also there, obviously the knight is hanging on c7. So she might not be happy with this, which is why she's spending her time now. She has I mean, she doesn't have all the time in the world, but compared to Vantika, she has quite some time. And it's obviously really fair that she's spending her time right now because this feels problematic. This feels problematic. If you play queen c3 to pin the knight, you will simply play queen takes a5, and that's how you lose the rook. It will be for an exchange, and the position will still be interesting because the knight on d5 is very strong. But I believe with some maneuvering left and right, black should be fine, more than fine. Okay, she's still thinking about this move. Yeah, it's not so easy in this position. By the way, if you guys have a question in the chat, feel free to ask. I'll try to reply to your questions. Oh, she plays a move knight b5. Wait a second. What about rook b7? Oh, wait a second. What is happening? It seems like she miscalculated something here because after rook b7, the logical move is obviously rook d1 to counterattack the knight. But then you're able to play knight c4 to attack that rook on a5. And after rook b7, if there's knight takes d6, you're simply able to play rook d7. And you'll either win the knight or the exchange on f1. And she does it, rook b7. Oh, this might be a huge chance for Vantika. Rook d1 and now simply knight c4. Oh, she might be she was maybe focused on knight takes d6, but the problem is you just take on a5. After knight takes d6, knight takes a5, you simply recapture on b7 and black will be up a piece. It looks like Kateryna miscalculated here, despite spending quite some time on this move. And that goes to show sometimes if you spend so much time on a move, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're making a good decision. Now b3 has been played. Where does this knight go? Because the knight has to go, and this pawn on d6 will drop. But Vantika needs to speed up now. She's down to 5 seconds. Oh, this is becoming scary as Kateryna is playing very actively, and those pawns on the queen side can be really dangerous. Vantika might be up a piece here, but it's against 2 pawns, and those 2 pawns can be really annoying. And this knight is not able to participate whatsoever. It will be very difficult for Vantika to convert this, especially considering the time situation. Because how do you involve this knight in the game? Ideally, you would want to play knight e7, knight c6, and knight d4, but that's not happening. Okay, but rook d5, it is sacrificing the pawn on e5, but it will allow the knight to come back in the game by playing knight e7. But it's not so clear, I have to say. Knight e7, rook e5, it's not very easy. Not very easy to convert this. And obviously, Kateryna will do her best to not give Vantika too many chances to win here. She'll make it very difficult for Vantika. So let's see how she continues, because you can't really push the pawns too much, because if you push c5, you'll face knight e7 and you lose the pawn on c5. So that's why she's now focusing on the 8th rank. But this does allow the knight to go to b6. Let's see how the game could... Knight e7. Okay. But where does this knight go? Where does it go? Because is Vantika okay with a draw here? It looks like she is okay with a draw. Oh, this game is becoming very tense as Kateryna's also down to 10 seconds and she is not accepting the draw. She went knight c5 instead. It's beautiful to see that the fighting spirit. Let's have a look. The king is on h6. It might feel like it's not great, but oh, what is happening over here? Knight goes to d4 maybe. Okay. Oh, this is becoming really dangerous because the pawns are pushing, and how do you stop them? c5, and she is sacrificing the knight for the 2 pawns, and this should be a draw, but you only have seconds. You only have seconds on the clock. This is not easy to hold. Okay, she might be able to hold this as the pawns are placed in such a way that you can give checks left and right. Oh, this is not easy to hold. The pawn is pushing. 2 seconds left. She needs to move really fast. Ooh. King e4. Oh my goodness, I believe that... Oh, she lost on the clock. Oh, that hurts so much. Vantika was playing so well, but Kateryna was holding her position so well. Despite being down a piece, she came back so well. And that goes to show that it's so difficult sometimes to convert a winning position, especially when you're so low on the clock. That was a really insane game, and both players really showed some fireworks here. Let's see how the game develops as we're back in the Grunfeld defense. All right. We're back to a similar position, but this time there's b6 and there's h4, and it looks like Harry is very excited today. Queen h4, wow. This looks very interesting. I am not too familiar with the Grunfeld myself, but I do know that this is quite rare to see. Because both players have castled short. Oh, she is... Wait, what's her idea after queen takes h5? Is she trapping the queen? Oh, no way she is doing that. Oh my goodness. If you take on h5, there's knight g3. There's knight g3. And after queen h4, bishop g5. Oh my goodness. Let me show you guys the line real quick on the analysis board. If queen takes h5, there's knight to g3. And if you play queen h4, bishop g5, and queen g4, bishop e2. And your queen is toast. Wow. Very impressive by Vantika. Wow. C takes d4, C takes d4 has happened, and this threat is still in position, but now the e4 pawn has dropped. And is there any compensation for that for Vantika? I can't see it right away, but the fact that her pieces are developed should give her enough compensation because, well, this bishop might be able to develop to b7 and control this diagonal. But with this queen on e4, Vantika might be able to organize her pieces in such a way to really bother this queen a lot and start an attack on the king side, perhaps. h6 has been played. Really interesting move. It could be an advantage long term, but for the time being, it's not doing much other than kicking the bishop back to h8. Ideally, what you would want to create here with white is knight g3, knight h5, sacrifice the knight so the pawn will take. Obviously, it's not forced, but in case that will happen, you may want to put your queen on g5, and that would be a nice checkmate pattern. Obviously, we're talking here very abstract, but that's why you want to have this pawn on h6. It could create those potential checkmate ideas, which is why I'm saying it could be an advantage long term. So let's see how Vantika continues now. Logical move that comes to mind is knight g3, but obviously it doesn't really do much because, well, you're gonna face probably like queen h4, queen, wait. Is the queen again getting trapped there? No, queen h4. I'm not entirely sure where this queen is going. I'm guessing the queen is, wait, I'm not entirely sure the queen is surviving there. It's very shaky, I have to say, it's very shaky. Rook d1 is set, and now knight a5, preparing bishop b7 threat to give a checkmate on g2. Knight c3, okay, that's another way to attack that queen, but queen c6 looks logical to play because you'll be attacking that bishop once again. You'll allow bishop b5, but that's perfectly fine because you'll retreat to c7. Let's see how she decides to, where she decides to put the queen, because you have so many squares. I would feel terrified myself to put the queen, for example, on g4. I don't think it's safe there whatsoever, especially because there's bishop e2, bishop f3, and you don't want to allow that. So I think the ideal move here is something like queen c6. Very safe, very simple, and keeping the idea of bishop b7 in the position. She goes queen b7 instead. Very interesting decision. Okay. She doesn't want to face this bishop b5 move, which makes a lot of sense. Bishop e2, preparing bishop f3. So bishop d7 makes a lot of sense now. There she goes. Because now after bishop f3, you'll simply counter it by playing bishop c6. And there we go. We will have it on the board. Okay, bishop c6 is pretty much forced. I mean, knight c6 doesn't feel good whatsoever. d5, okay, he takes d5. But you can't really recapture it. I mean, you can, but do you want to is another question. Bishop d4 now. So Vantika basically sacrificed another pawn. I was going to say a pawn, but she's down 2 pawns in this position, guys. She is down 2 pawns, and look what a beautiful position she has. She sacrificed this pawn to make this bishop on c6 look very silly. She puts the bishop on d4 because she wants to trade that bishop off the board on h8, and then she'll be able to execute her plans, one of them being putting that queen on g7. Wow. Wow, it's beautiful to see how both players are playing, and especially Vantika, she's playing really well. She is putting a great performance so far already. Rook 88. Kateryna is ignoring this bishop d4 move. Now, the question is, does Vantika want to take already, or does she want to strengthen her position first? And for example, play a move like queen g5 or queen f4 to evolve the queen already. But I can imagine that she wants to trade the bishops off first. But there's no rush. I mean, the one thing that will not allow you to trade off the bishops anymore is if a move like f6 will happen. But do you want to play the move f6 voluntarily? I think Ben Feingold will say a big no. So let's, okay, well, it happened after all, but without the bishops on the board. Well, it happened anyways. But the point here is that a lot of squares around the king are weakened. The square e6 is weakened. You might be able to, once you get your rook on the 7th ring with the white pieces, black will have a problem. Black will have a clear problem. So for short term, it was necessary to play, but long term, this might be a problem. Knight e2, knight e4 is a very sensible approach, and I think that makes a lot of sense because, well, if you're able to capture that pawn on g6 with your knight, if you're able to open up the king even more, that would be fantastic. However, you'll have to time it precisely, because if that's your only plan and that's it, you'll simply face black will be able to defend that pretty easily. So you have to play precisely there. So first we see queen f4 on the board. Let's see what the plan is of Vantika, because now that the queen is away from the g file, it may be a bit more difficult to find a way to break through. But it looks like at least she's covering the square c7, so queen c7 is out of question. It's impressive to see that Vantika has an advantage in a position where she's down 2 pawns. I don't think that's happening very often. I don't think that happens very often. We see queen b8 now on the board, offering a trade, because obviously if we get to an end game, Kateryna will feel much more comfortable, because one of the reasons that Vantika has an advantage is because the king is exposed, and with the queens on the board, she might be able to make use of some sort of kingside attack. But now the queens are off the board. She decided to trade off the queens, which is not a very big deal, as she is able to capture that pawn on d5. And the reason she captured it with the knight is because after bishop takes, this knight will feel very uncomfortable on a5. But Kateryna plays rook f7. Very interesting decision. She decided to stop the check on e7 like that. And okay, it turns out that Vantika was indeed planning to do that, which is why she played rook e1. But now she's down to 12 seconds again. She is in time trouble once again. And how does she continue here? She's down a pawn, remember? She's still down a pawn. And with the queens off the board, it's not so simple. Rook f4, I like this move. Because if you take, the rook will have to leave, and then this pawn on f6 will drop. So if you play f5, which looks like the logical move, I'm not entirely sure how to follow up here, because you don't really want to move the knight, but it's a bit hard to see where the axis points are after f5. You may want to follow it up with g4. Okay, knight b4 makes sense because the knight fell a bit loose on d5. So now we see a bishop trade, and slowly but surely Kateryna is converting this to an advantage for her. And it becomes very difficult to see where Vantika, where her chances are in this position. And we see a rook trade, king h2. Now rook e2, you have to be careful for moves like rook d7. Double attack, and if white is able to capture this pawn on h7, white will have a great chance to equalize. And she dropped the pawn on h6, but I have a feeling that Vantika did this voluntarily. She doesn't mind losing that pawn because it means that this rook is pretty much out of the game. And now knight d5, knight f6 might be an idea to equalize. 1 second, she had to move! Oh no, she lost on time again, and this time she still had the chance to go for a win here because she had a very active position. Oh, this is very unfortunate for Fantika. She played such a great game, and Kateryna was ahead at one point in the game, but Fantika played really well once again. And seeing that she's flagging at this pace, this might hurt her chances in the long run. It's really unfortunate because she is playing so well, and if it wasn't for the clock, she might have been able to create some advantage. Knight BD7. Okay, we're back to the knight dwarf in this game. We're back to the knight dwarf, but this time Kateryna went for a different line where now there's a pawn on d5, which becomes a big target for black, but with c4 you're still able to defend that, so that's pretty ideal. Typically you don't have the move c4 at your disposal because there's a knight on c3, or at least there's the move b5, which doesn't allow you to play the move c4, but after the move b5 there is a4, and you'll probably still be able to play c4. Typically after b5 a4 you're still able to play b4, but because of this bishop on d2 you're not able to. So let's see how Fantika deals with that, because if you're not able to play b5, then what are you supposed to play here? She goes for the move a5 to try to play a4, and typically you want to bait the move a4 because this weakens the square b4. But the only question is, how do you get to b4? Typically you want to put this knight over there, and the way that the knight typically maneuvers there too is through b8, c6, and b4. However, you can still access it by playing b8, knight b8, knight a6, and knight b4, or you can even go to c5, but you could go directly to c5, so that doesn't make much sense. So yeah, you are able to access b4, but is it worth it? Is it worth it? And with the move b6, I mean, she felt the need because the pawn a5 had a lot of pressure, but this will make it very difficult for her to attack that pawn on d5. And suddenly Kateryna is focusing a lot on the king side as Fantika played the aggressive move h5. Wow. Ooh, bishop b5 here. Bishop b5 trying to infiltrate on c6 over there. Ooh, this becomes a bit spooky for Fantika. This becomes a bit spooky because Kateryna's plan is clear. She's improving her position. She puts the bishop on this really nice square very shortly, whenever the time is right. She doesn't even have to put the bishop there. She can simply sit on b5 and chill there because this bishop is doing just fine on b5. And now king g7 makes a lot of sense. I mean, first of all, you're not allowing bishop h6, and it feels a bit more safe with this pawn structure to sit on g7. In any case, if needed, you can play rook h8, maybe knight g8. Maybe that's her plan, to play knight g8 at one point. But the problem is knight e7 is hanging, so you have to look out for that first. Bishop e3, all right. What is the idea behind bishop e3? Failing to see, I'm guessing she just wanted to move the bishop because the pawn was under attack. Not really, but in a way, because the knight had to protect the knight on d7 previously. But I'm guessing she just wanted to open up the rook over here. So knight c5 has been played, which is a really logical move. And now, obviously, I don't think white wants to take on c5 ever. She does it anyways. Okay, b takes c5. It's difficult to understand why b takes c5 is better than d takes c5. But I believe there are two reasons. One, by taking with the b pawn on c5, this bishop is not as strong anymore. It's still very strong, but at least this pawn is not stuck behind that bishop. And the second reason, as the position develops already, if you take with this pawn, the pawn on d5 will become a passed pawn. You might not be able to push it right away, but it might become very difficult to deal with in the long term. And let's see what happens here, because if they're playing quite quickly all of a sudden, as I'm trying to explain something, they decided to play faster. They don't want you guys to hear my explanation of this position. They just want to play faster. And it's kind of interesting to see because typically the time situation is very unbalanced, but in this game, it's pretty balanced. Now F5, it's very interesting to see that Vantika is playing very aggressively with F5. She doesn't mind, you know, like the square G5 is very weak, but she is basically saying like, yeah, what are you gonna do about it? It's not like you can place a knight there or something. So that's kind of funny to see. So let's see how Kateryna deals with this, because the move F5, it doesn't threaten F4 right away. But I honestly can see that Vantika simply wants to open up that F file. And we see bishop F4. She's not allowing the move F4. Bishop F6. This bishop is really well placed now because it is eyeing on that pawn on B2. Rook F1, all right. H4, asking the queen to leave. Please leave from that square, because can be terrifying, obviously. But I have a feeling that, I mean, first of all, if the queen leaves, you don't have to worry much about this pressure on the pawn on d6, so the knight will be able to move easily. So I'm guessing that that's why she played h4. And I mean, if you're able to play h4, why not? Is there even a move like g5 in a position, or is that too crazy? Okay, she goes for knight g4 first, which makes perfect sense. And she's setting up the threat bishop d4. Bishop d4 check is a huge threat, because after king h1, knight f2 check, and you'll have to sacrifice material. And that's why she plays c3. Very good move, but the engine is not very happy about this. And I have a feeling it's because this knight on g4 is a monster, and it will be very difficult to deal with that. Rook a7, I really liked either bishop e5 or bishop g5 to simply get rid of that bishop. This knight on g4 is a monster. This bishop on f6 is not able to do much anymore. Okay, we see rook e1, rook e7. Okay, offering the trade of rooks. Vantika needs to find a way to infiltrate in this position, as this queen on h3 is not doing great, which is why Kateryna goes for queen f3. And perhaps she's preparing to move h3, because this knight is an absolute pain on g4. It's interesting to see that Vantika is up on the clock this time. We haven't seen her up on the clock many times. I think rarely, because she was typically spending quite some time, but it looks like she is in her comfort zone in this game. Bishop d2 now. This pawn structure is simply amazing, but it could backfire a lot. And as we see, the pawn on f5 is already okay. It's not really hanging, because if white takes on f5, there's bishop d4 check, and you're able to win the queen. But there's a lot of pieces hanging over here after queen takes f5. So let's see how Black responds to this, because how do you make progress here? You're not able to play f4 because the knight will simply drop. And if you play, I mean, if you want to go 95 back so you can push all the pawns, feels like a pity, you know? Maybe 96 even. Okay, that's probably a bit too much, because you're not able to play g4. This bishop will simply capture your piece on h6. Bishop b5 is another very logical move to attack the pawn on h2. But I'm guessing there's bishop takes g5. And the king will be even more exposed, and we don't mind allowing knight takes h2, because, well, there's a lot happening on this diagonal. So I'm guessing that's why bishop e5 is not working, but she plays the move rook f7, and the engine is not happy with this. Let's have a look why that is the case. Rook e6, wow, what a move, rook e6. If you take, suddenly it becomes very difficult for Black to deal with this, because with this pawn on e6, this bishop will become even stronger, and this pawn on f5 might drop, and there's a lot of action going on. Queen d7 might be a move as well. She plays h3 first, okay, and now maybe queen b7 check could be an idea to consider. Okay, there's queen e7, so not a big deal just yet. Queen d5 is what she plays instead. Okay, with this pawn on e6, it becomes really dangerous for black because suddenly, like, I mean, look at this knight on h6. It's never able to join the game anymore. It's stuck on h6. You're not able to go to f7 anymore, and you can't maneuver through g8 whatsoever. Oh, this becomes really dangerous for Vantika. She's also down on the clock all of a sudden. Kateryna has a great position, and she, with great technique, she will be able to convert this easily. Rook c5, queen d3. Yeah, this is very difficult. She's trying to play bishop. Oh, knight f7. I was going to say bishop b4 is an idea to consider, but knight f7 is a really interesting move because after pawn takes, you can take the bishop. Oh, but this knight goes to e5 perhaps. Knight e5. Okay. But now this pawn is unstoppable. a7. Can you play? Oh, a7, queen c5. Oh my goodness. What a resourceful move. And she could have played it anyways because she could play queen f2. Oh, okay. This knight is a bit scary, but now he can simply promote very soon. She promotes right away, and now she's simply up. Oh, that evil bar drop was really scary. Okay, white resigned, but black resigned. I'm sorry, but I'm very curious to see before we switch to if I can pull up the last game because that ending was still a little bit interesting. Am I able to see the last? I don't think I'm able to see last game. No, I can't. No, our last game has disappeared. No, I'm not able to pull up that game. That's really unfortunate. But that was really interesting ending because I believe black still had a chance to make some miracle happen. The evil bar was upset in from white's perspective. So we will never know, guys, what it was. We will never know. Maybe the engine just had a stroke. All right, let's move on to the next game. We're back to the Grunfeld, and this time we see the b6, bishop b7 setup once again. And this time Vantika is not playing h4. I honestly loved her h4 move. Maybe she's gonna play it now. She could play it now, I believe. Yeah, she does it. This feels a bit more safe, considering the fact that this queen h4 move, I mean, I don't think it was that dangerous for white, but it could be terrifying to face it. All right. Okay, this knight on a5, I mean, I have a feeling this knight doesn't really have much else to do and like elsewhere to go to, but yeah, with the rooks on the board, at least it might be able to go to c4 in the near future, but there we go. Very near future even. But with the rooks on the board, it seems very difficult for this knight to become active. But okay, we have the rooks off the board and this knight is able to go to c4. So let's see how white will respond to this because, well, obviously you don't want to take here. If you take queen takes c4, the pair of bishops are they're really strong together. There's a lot of tension in the center because of those bishops. So I can imagine that Vantika is not going to trade on c4. So that's why she goes for queen b4 instead, attacking the knight on c4. Now, how do you defend that? Because do you want to play bishop b6? It's not a move you want to play. I'm guessing, oh, b5. Is that not simply dropping the pawn on b5? Let's see what Kateryna has in mind, because I have a feeling it's simply dropping. I don't see counterplay as much. Okay, she goes h6 first. That's a good intermediate move. She can simply afford to do that. And after bishop f8, she's basically like asked the question, do you want to take? You want to take? Yes, I want to take, is Vantika's answer. And now Kateryna, what is she going to do here? Because what was her plan? Was her plan to play knight d6 to attack the pawn on d4 as well as the queen on b5? But after knight d6, at least you have the move queen b1, right? So that should not be a problem for white. I'm failing to see what Kateryna had in mind, and I believe she's understanding now that she miscalculated something. Because suddenly it becomes very difficult to deal with this position, especially because white is up a pawn, and not just any pawn, but this pawn is on d4. And if there's any pawn that you don't want to have, like, give to your opponent, it's this pawn on d4. Because this pawn will be able to turn into a passed pawn in like the long term. So Kateryna really needs to find a way to create compensation here, because currently I don't have a feeling there is any. The dark squares around the king are very weak, and despite the bishop being close to the king, if the knight gets to f6, black will have a big problem. Now the question is, how do you get there? Oh, imagine knight f4, knight h5, knight f6. Because if knight f4, knight h5 and you take, maybe there is moves like e5 and you take on h7. That could be a huge idea. But obviously we're thinking very abstract here, and this might not happen on the board, but those are ideas that you need to consider. And that's why Kateryna goes for a bishop a6. She wants to trade off those bishops, and well, maybe she can have a shot at attacking those pawns in the center. They seem like hanging pawns. They're not really hanging pawns, because this pawn is able to support the pawn on on e4, but they could still become very weak. Okay, queen c2. Logical move, because you want to defend that knight on e2. All right, what's going to happen next? Queen b5, okay. This bishop, if you move to f6, you drop the pawn on h6, so that's not ideal. I'm guessing the move e5 would make sense, but it does allow knight f5, and I believe that's what Vantika does not want to allow, which is why she goes for bishop f4 instead. Knight to c4, okay. Kateryna is trying to build some, not really like a fortress, but like trying to block white as much as possible, because it's not so clear how white can make use of the advantage in this position. d5. What a move. Wait a second, what is happening? E takes e5, e takes e5, queen takes d5. What is the idea here? Is she not? Oh, she's not going to take. She's not going to take on d5. She's going to play knight c3. After knight c3, then you're able to recapture on d5. Wow. Vantika is so sharp when it comes to those tiny little pawn moves. She's able to see, like, okay, either she is sacrificing them and she's able to understand the position, as in, I'm going to sacrifice this pawn, but I'll get a lot of initiative back from it. And she sacrifices them with big reasons. Or she sacrifices it temporarily to somehow gain it back, and that's the way she's improving her position. Because if she was not going to do anything there, it was very difficult to see how to improve the position. And now you can see she has a passed pawn, and it becomes very clear all of a sudden what her plan is and how to convert this game. Now the problem is the problem is, I was going to say, I'm actually not very sure. I'm not very sure. I was going to say that there might be knight takes d6 tricks, and the knight would have been loose on e2, but I'm actually not entirely sure. I'm guessing, let's pull up the analysis board real quick, because it's an interesting line to consider. d6, I'm guessing there's knight takes d6, and after bishop takes d6, there's queen d7. And suddenly there's a pin on the d file, and I think that was the problem. That's why d6 was not possible. So knight c3, queen b4, and you have to be really precise here. And what I really like about both players is how precise they are. When it comes to converting those type of positions, they are so precise, and Vantika is not in a rush to push that pawn. I mean, obviously, when you have a passed pawn, you want to push it as much as possible to get across the board, but you also need to time it precisely, because if you push d6 out of nowhere, you might face the consequences. But now in this position, Vantika strengthened her position so much with a knight on e4, bishop f4, and the queen on d1. I think it's only a matter of time until d6 is going to be on the board. Now it's black to move, and it's very difficult to see how Kateryna will be able to find some compensation and swindle her way out of this mess, because, well, d6 is simply following up right now. There's no way you can stop it. She does it. She does it. d6 is on the board, and look at the time difference. Pantika has been playing so fast. And obviously Kateryna, I mean, she was in a worse position, and after b5, it went all downhill. So this is a really good win, really good point as well for Fantika, as she was down 3 points, but now the difference on the scoreboard is only 2 points, and there is still 24 minutes left in the 5+1 portion of the match. As you guys know, this is the Speed Chess Championship with the Speed Chess Championship format, which is 90 minutes of 5+1, which we are concluding in 24 minutes. And after that, we'll have 60 minutes of 3+1. And after the 3+1 portion of the match, we'll have 1+1, which is bullet, for 30 minutes. So that's still quite a lot of games. So despite the score difference of 2 points, it's very much possible to come back from this. And especially seeing how Fantika has been playing so far, she has been holding up very well. All right, we're back to the Najdorf, everyone, and we're back to the line that was played previously as well. First, Kateryna had this beautiful maneuver with the knight from d4 going to f3, d2, and eventually c4. But she went back to this line that she played in the previous Najdorf game. And Fantika is spending quite some time here. I wonder why. Okay, bishop e6. Knight b4 is another move to consider because, well, the queen is on d3 and the queen would have to retreat to d2. But instead she goes for bishop e6. Okay, now rook d1. Is knight b4 still a move to consider? I guess you can consider it, but I don't think white really minds being able to go to d2. I mean, you might be able to go to e1, and then this rook will be able to control the d file, and I think that would be pretty ideal for white. All right, let's have a look now. a4, very typical move. Once again, in a Sicilian. This time b5 is on the board. So b4 is a possible move. Now, it's a very typical that in this position, you do not want to take on a4 because rook takes a4. And this pawn on a6 will become a huge target. In the other game where b takes a4 actually happened, it was not that much of a big deal, but it's in this situation that you don't want to take. So b4 would make sense, but knight b4 is another move to consider once again. Maybe after knight b4, then you're able to take, because then you'll have your knight on b4 placed, and it will be very difficult for black to kick the knight out of there. And the a6 pawn will be defended very well. And she does it. Knight b4 has been played. Kateryna goes for queen d2. Pretty much the only move in the position. And now is the question, as she does it. She takes on a4. I was going to ask, is she going to take on a4? Yes or no? And she does it. B takes a4. It's really interesting to see, because typically it's not recommended to take on a4. But the positions are progressing in such a way that it is okay to take on a4. You rarely see that, because typically in the Sicilian openings, and almost all of them, you most of the time see b4 happen rather than b takes a4. So it's really interesting to see. And now queen b8 has been played because, well, you want to defend the knight on b4 and also keep an eye on that pawn on a6. So let's see how Kateryna continues here. I'm guessing f4 would be a logical move. Oh, f3, I'm not too happy with that because, well, you typically don't want to play f3 whenever there's bishop on e2. Knight takes c2, what a move! Wow, she is sacrificing the knight, and, well, she captured the pawn because there are pieces looking right at the knight on b3. What a tactic! Knight takes c2 out of the blue. Kateryna completely missed this. And she went completely wrong with the move f3. And now Vantika is simply up a very, well, I want to say healthy pawn, but you don't want to be ahead at the d6 pawn. Like if the pawn was on d4, you'll be much happier. But not just that, she'll be able to capture this bishop. Ooh. As soon as Vantika is able to push d5, she will have a phenomenal position. But for the time being, that will be very difficult. Bishop d8. Oh, bishop b6 is a huge threat. That is a very big threat. One of the moves that you can consider is king h1. Very simple. Very simply to avoid that. Oh, bishop takes a5 and then queen b6. Oh, what is happening? Oh, no, she missed it. Vantika missed it. Bishop takes a5 was completely winning. Oh, both players missed this tactic. Oh my goodness. Bishop takes a5 and it was completely over. And you're just a piece ahead. You're not going to recapture that piece. Wow. Oh, it was right there in the position. This goes to show that anything can happen. Anything can happen. You make a mistake and your opponent might actually not see how to deal with it. You know, they might not realize that you made a mistake. Let's see how it continues now, because Vantika is like, nah, don't need that piece. I want to win in style. All right, let's see. Bishop c4. You don't have to trade. You don't have to. Okay, she goes bishop d7. Okay. She probably wants to play bishop b4. This is still pretty playable for both sides. White has a lot of squares accessible to their pieces. This knight on a5, it looks a bit oddly placed there. But if it's able to enter c6, it might be able to, you know, create some fires, or it may be able to maneuver to c4. Then it will be able to attack the pawn on d6. So there's still a lot of compensation for white. But I have to note here, guys, Kateryna has 3 minutes. 3 minutes! And Vantika is down to 50 seconds. That's a huge time difference. And there's still so much going on and so much to happen in this game, because it is far from over for Kateryna. She still has a lot of compensation despite being down a pawn. Queen b6 now has been played, attacking the knight on a5. So I'm guessing knight b3 would be a logical move to play. Yeah, knight b3 seems logical. There's also moves like knight d5, and after knight takes, you can take with the queen, but it looks very dangerous. Knight b3 looks very logical. A5 has been played, all right. Knight d2. Once again, the knight wants to maneuver to c4, but this bishop is in the way. This bishop is in the way. Perhaps you could even consider moving the knight to the king side. Or you can simply go knight f1, knight e3, and then go to d5. Okay, she plays b3 because she wants to set that bishop in stone on c4. Nobody is able to touch that ever. Let's see how Vantika continues as she's down to 20 seconds. h5. Oh, she really needs to speed up here. This is really dangerous for her. Oh, bishop c5. Okay, she does not want to trade pieces. Typically, you want to trade pieces when you're down on the clock, but oh, allowing knight e4. Okay, you're able to capture it. Okay, she does capture that. Let's see how Kateryna deals with this situation, because you might feel like, oh, you're up on the clock, and you might feel pressured to play fast, but this might backfire you. So it's always very difficult, psychologically speaking, to deal with this. But knowing Kateryna, knowing that she's so experienced in shorter time formats, especially because we know that Kateryna is, I was going to say something really nice about Kateryna, but she dropped bishop c5 and queen g1 is a checkmate threat. And if the knight leaves to d2, what is going on? Bishop e3 is suddenly in the air. Oh, I was going to say that Kateryna is multiple times women's world champion in rapid and blitz over the board. which is why she's very experienced in these shorter time controls. But here she made a mistake. Rook d-a1. It looked so logical, but bishop c5. How are you going to deal with knight g3? You just simply capture that. And all that Vantika needs to do now is not flag. Do not flag. We need the speed right now more than ever. Queen d2. Okay. Ooh, okay, she can still avoid the queen trade. Okay, actually, then the queen h6 happens. Once the queens are off the board, it will be much more clear how to convert this, because, well, there won't be so much going on, and not as much anymore. But with the queen on the board, things can still get complicated. For what it's worth, Vantika has the knight, and the knight, we all know, is a terrible piece to face in the... Oh, don't play queen g6. Don't play queen g6. I'm terrified of this move. Okay, queen h7. It's still winning. King g1, bishop c5 probably. Oh, and the king g3, knight e4 check. Oh, she spotted that very well. And if king g1, bishop c5, the king will move and the rook on h1 will drop. And we see resignation. What an amazing win by Vantika. And the score is 4-3 for Kateryna. Such a close score. Vantika has been playing super well. Obviously, Kateryna has also been playing really well, but Vantika is really showing up today. Wow. We're back to the Grunfeld defense. And we're repeating this line with b6. And it looks like both players are speeding up, especially Vantika is speeding up here, because Kateryna has almost always been speeding up in the games throughout. But seeing Vantika speed up, at least it warms my heart to see that she'll not end up in time trouble as fast as in the other games. But yeah, Kateryna really needs to step up because Vantika has been crushing it pretty much. In the two games that she lost pretty much only because of time. She was doing really well. She had the upper hand. She had a very balanced or still a complicated position where anything could happen. So this match is really close so far. All right. Knight to c6 now. Okay, now it's the time where Vantika is spending quite some time. Let's see what's happening here, because the knight went to... Wait, where was the bishop from d3? Where did... Oh, the bishop came from c4, I believe. So it's interesting to see that Kateryna is repeating this knight maneuver, because she went first to a5 and now she went back. But the idea is that she's attacking the pawn on d4. Okay, bishop b5, trying to pin that knight. But now after b5, you'll have to go to b3 or c2, but ideally to b3, because you don't want to cut off your rook just like that. Bishop b3, and now how does black continue? How does black continue? Does she play knight a5 again? Oh wait, actually that's a hanging piece. With the pawn d5, knight a5 is not a move anymore. How does black continue here? Because you want to put pressure on this pawn d4, but you're not able to play rook d8, and you don't want to play f4, f6 either, because this e6 pawn will be under lots of pressure. What does black do here? It's not so simple. I honestly don't really see what black could do here. Maybe you have to play a5 to play a4 and try to get some play on the queen side. I'm guessing that's one of the ideas here. But to me, it seems like white simply has a phenomenal position. Like you can play, I'm guessing if you play e5, you open up the diagonal for the bishop, and you allow the knight to jump to d5 and f5. If you play d5 here, I'm guessing there's takes. And you allow the knight to jump to f5, but at least you have a really nice passed pawn that could create a lot of problems for your opponent. And she does it. She plays d5. Okay, let's see what's going to happen here. Wow. Okay, the rooks are being traded off. All right. And once again, Vantika has a great position. I am failing to see how Black could create any sort of compensation here. Obviously, the game is far from over, and we're still like in the early stages of the game. But seeing how Vantika plays, she plays so convincingly. She plays really convincingly, and like her position is amazing. This bishop on b7 is not doing much. I mean, obviously, you have to be careful that this pawn on d5 will be under attack, and if you push the pawn, this bishop will activate, but I feel like if the queens are off the board, Vantika will have a great advantage. Knight f5 has been played now. The knight preferably wants to move to d6 to block that pawn altogether. And Vantika goes for h5, all right? Rook e8 has been played, so the knight is under attack now. Queen d2, all right. It's a very interesting position still. Do you want to take on g6 or do you want to play h6? Let's see what Black does first. Okay, knight d6. It threatens the move knight e4 at least. That counts for something. I'm guessing you can play bishop h6. Okay, she goes for knight g3 instead, defending from that annoying move knight e4. What is Black's plan now? Are you able to play bishop e5? Do you want to play bishop e5? If bishop e5, you might face f4, so that could be really annoying. Okay, we see knight c4 on the board. Now, if you take, which is, well, the first move that comes to mind, you allow your opponent to have a passed pawn as well. And you might feel like it becomes a big weakness, but because Black will be able to push c3 and the bishop is covering that square, it might not be so easy to deal with for White. So I'm guessing the way to go here, I was going to suggest move the queen, but if you move the queen, you will lose that pawn on d5. So I have a feeling bishop takes c4 is actually almost forced. Okay, bishop h8 has been played because h6 was attacking that bishop. Once again, very similar type of structure around this king, around the Black king. Let's see if Vantika can make use of this time, or if Kateryna is able to make something happen with this pawn on c4, because I can imagine seeing c3 being played and that the pawn could get really far. But for now, it's White's move. Let's see what's going to happen here. By the way, both players are more or less around the same time. I'm saying this as Vantika is spending quite some time, but a 30-second difference is not too crazy. And it's moving towards 1 minute difference, but we've seen much worse. Queen f4 has been played. The engine is very displeased with this move, and I have a feeling it's because, well, the pawn is simply pushing, and yeah, it's definitely a lot of compensation for Black here. Vantika's idea here is to play bishop f6, and once the bishops are off the board, obviously queen g7 checkmate is a problem. So let's see if Kateryna is seeing something after c3, bishop f6. Okay, she convincingly plays, she's very convinced about this move c3, it seems like. And after bishop f6, I'm guessing there is a move like c2. And after rook c1, what's going on there? What is going on? The queen takes c5. Oh, it's checkmate threat. Gotta be careful with that. She sees it, plays f3. All right. Okay, and then where is the follow? Do you have queen d1 check? I mean, you do have the check, but does it do much? I don't think so. It doesn't do much. How does Black deal with the threat of bishop takes h8, queen f6, queen g7? Ideally, Black would want to trade off the queens, but how do you do that? It is so difficult to see here because, well, it's very hard to see how you can trade off the queens or offer a trade even. A move that comes to mind is queen c5 check, but after a move like king h2, I'm feeling to see a follow-up here because, well, you do have a nice position, but this remains a threat. Bishop takes h8. Okay, she plays queen c5 check. Okay. And now I would say king h2, yeah, that seems like a logical move. The nice thing about, well, for white, that is the nice thing about queen d1 check is that you don't have to take. You don't have to take. There was king h2, and your queen is covering the rook. That is the most important part in this situation. And if bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, I am very happy with the checkmate from Wright's perspective, that is. So, okay, bishop takes f6 has actually been played, but now with queen f8, Kateryna is able to defend from the checkmate, but this does mean that white has some chances here. It's not over. Okay, gotta be careful. Queen takes h6 is a threat. It's a really nice threat posed by Kateryna. Good to see you, Bigfoot, in the chat. Good to see you. Players are now around the same time on the clock. And we still have 4 minutes on the match clock. So we might see another game in this time control after this one. Okay, she plays the move queen f4. She found the move queen f4, defending that pawn on h6. And what is the follow-up now? Because the rook c8, Kateryna is defending that pawn on the c2 very well now. It feels like there's something here for Vantika. She has this pawn on h6. She has, oh my god, knight h5? What? Knight h5. After g takes h5, that's the first move you obviously look at. You are facing queen g5. And oh yeah, there might be a repetition. There might be repetition, and Vantika is more than happy to take that. But obviously, I can imagine that Kateryna is like, nope, we're not having that, as she goes for f5. Wow, she's not allowing the move knight f6, which was a check. And now where is the follow-up? I have a hard time seeing where the follow-up is. Knight g3 has been played, simply retreating because the repetition was not present anymore. Oh, rook c4, what an unpleasant move, because now rook h4 check is in the air, h6 pawn is dropping, but bishop is hanging. Oh, queen c5, what a beautiful move. What a beautiful move. And suddenly, after the queen trade, it's over with bishop b3. Now we're just gonna play rook d4, rook d1, or she's gonna take the pawn off the board. Knight d4, and after knight takes c2, there's rook c5, and you lose material. Wow. It was very difficult for Vantika to play here. And it's not, I would not blame it on the clock whatsoever. The position was very complicated, and Kateryna played super well. She played very clean, very neat chess. So I wouldn't say this was the problem of the clock. I would say the problem was, oh, rook d1, look at that. You're not able to take because black will simply recapture and promote to queen. And we see that Vantika lost on time, but position-wise, she was also losing. We have one more game at our disposal in the 5+1 portion of the match. Kateryna is up 5 points to 3 now, so that's a 2-point difference. But both players have been playing so well. Both players have been playing really well, and Kateryna played really well in this last game, but Vantika had a really difficult task to make something happen because the position was very complicated, and it was very difficult to play from the moment onwards where she lost that passed pawn. So that goes to show you can have a passed pawn, but it's still very difficult to deal with the position because Kateryna also had the passed pawn. We're now back to the Najdorf again. This time bishop d2. I believe that's a new move in this match. I believe that's very new, a new move in this match because previously we've seen bishop e3, which is one of the main moves. Let's see what Kateryna has in mind here, because bishop d2 is quite unusual. Perhaps she, I was going to suggest knight d1, c4, knight e3, but If you play knight d1, I believe you face d5, and that's the golden move in the Sicilian. Now we see knight d5 again. Okay. Now there's a pawn on d5. Typically, whenever you're able to, you want to recapture on d5 with a piece that's not a pawn. But the problem here is that, well, you have no choice. You either lose the queen or you take this with the pawn. You take this position. So yeah. All right, rook ac1. Kateryna is preparing the move c4, obviously. She could have played it already, actually. It may have been, I mean, maybe she wants to keep the option open to play c4 because, well, if black decides to play b5, I'm curious to see if c4 would have been a move you want to play or no, because the d5 pawn is pretty vulnerable and you have to play really careful here. Okay, both players refuse to move the pawns on the queen side, which is really interesting. Typically, you see them, and there you go. a4 has been played. And now you typically want to play a5. So how do you deal with that from black's perspective? b6 is a possible move, but it feels, other than defending yourself from the move a5, it feels a bit unnecessary. Actually, whenever a5 happens, you can still counter it with b6. So perhaps there's no rush in playing a5, but she does it right away. Ooh, the move e4. Where did that come from? All of a sudden, e4 is on the board, and now the knight can jump to e5, and it becomes a bit shaky because the pawn on d5 is loose. With the bishop still on d2, the rook is not able to defend the pawn on d5. And I have a feeling this pawn might simply lose. The only move you have to defend the pawn is queen d4, but it doesn't feel like this queen is very safe over there. Perhaps there's rook e5, bishop g7. There's all sorts of moves. Okay, she does queen d4, and a move like bishop g7 could be really annoying, and she plays bishop g7, and there's always tension along this diagonal. With the pawn put on e4 now, it looks much more like this game is in black's hands. But it's definitely not over for white. But it's safe to say that it's definitely a bit more difficult for white to deal with this position, because where is your play now? You got your pawn all the way to a5, but how do you make use of that space advantage on the queen side? It's very difficult to see that. Vantika countered it by playing in the center, and it's very, very easy to notice that black has a really nice position. All right. What can white do in this position? You can either decide to stay here and survive with your queen on d4, but I have a feeling that's not what you want to do. If you play a move like queen c4, let's have a look at that move. It's interesting to see. I mean, I'm guessing there's queen takes c4, bishop takes c4, and you simply attack the bishop. The bishop cannot be protected by any piece on the board. So the bishop will have to leave, and that's how you lose the pawn on d5. So that's why queen c4 is not the greatest move in this position. But it definitely makes a lot of sense because, well, you want to hold on to that pawn, right? And she plays c3 instead, okay? She plays f3 instead. C3, sorry. F3, I mean, you could consider it. It's not a really terrible move, but okay. What is black's plan here now? Because obviously you want to target this pawn, but you don't really have a nice discovery attack, right? You have knight g4, but then the queen will simply go to b4, and, you know, white is just fine. Both players are around 2 minutes on the clock, so at least there's no big time difference. Okay, we see 95 on the board. Okay. Very logical move because, well, the knight pretty much belongs there. And we see again, Vantika going for the h-pawn to h5. She has been playing this, the hairy pawn very often. with both sides, with both white and black pieces. So that's really interesting. Queen d7 has been played, probably preparing queen f5 and then g5, g4, and everything. All of the pawns suddenly come forward. Queen d2 now, right? Not allowing the pawn to go to g5 whatsoever. Perhaps a move you could consider is rook c8, knight c4. That could be an idea. But ever since h5, it's, I mean, obviously the idea is clear, but the execution is very unclear, because after the queen d2, which is a really nice move played by Kateryna, it becomes difficult to see how this pawn will ever move forward, because that's pretty much what you want here. You don't have a light squared bishop that you could just simply sacrifice on h3. There's a queen here, and sacrificing the queen might be a bit much. But if black had a light squared bishop on f5, bishop takes h3 would have been something to consider. Absolutely. Actually, that would have been winning. There's so many threats here with the knights. So because of that, the attack pretty much dies down over here for black. And now white has a really nice space on the queen side, and the square d4 is available for the knight or the bishop. And yeah, it becomes difficult to see where black is heading to. And that's why she's spending quite some time. She's down to 40 seconds. Oh, she needs to speed up, because Kateryna is very dangerous in those time scrambles. Very dangerous. Oh, knight d3. That's a really creative move. And once again, Vantika is not afraid to sacrifice a pawn. And it makes sense that she's sacrificing the pawn, because after knight e4, the bishop is looking straight to that pawn on b2, and c4 could be a target. But other than that, it's difficult to see where the compensation is, because it's very simple and very easy for Kateryna to defend. Knight d4 has been played, okay. Knight c5, all right. Okay, and queen c2. Okay, the queen had to move, obviously. But it's difficult to see where the queen is placed best. Now, b4 could be a move, and yeah, this knight is so strong on d4. You obviously don't want to take with your beautiful bishop on g7. So yeah, it's a bit difficult for Vantika to play her, and Kateryna is playing super strong. And if Kateryna is very patient here, it might be very simple to convert. It's bishop e5 now, and look at the eval bar. It's impressive to see that Kateryna's only up one pawn, but the pieces, their coordination matters so much here, because the black pieces are very disoriented, and it's very difficult for the black pieces to cooperate. And there you go. There is a pawn breakthrough with d6, and after b takes c5, it will be very difficult for Vantika to come back from this. But because there's those really strong pawns on d6 and c5, and now rook b1 is followed. You have to be careful. Okay, queen. Oh, need knight. Oh, there was knight c3. Okay. I mean, knight c3, rook takes b7. Questionable, still questionable. I mean, there's so many threats in the position, and Vantika is down to 3 seconds. So this is pretty much, I mean, I want to say impossible to hold, but that's mainly because of the time. Like, the position is completely lost, but you never know what can happen, right? But with the time situation, if the clock situation was reversed, I would say black has still some chances, at least. Like, it's a short time control, anything can happen, but with this time situation and this position on the board, it will be very difficult for Vantika to come back from this. And now after bishop takes d4, the c5 pawn will drop, because after knight takes c4, there's knight c3, and after queen takes, there's rook takes c5, and that's what we have on the board. The d6 pawn is also dropping. Well, if there was not rook takes c4, because wow, rook takes c4 was a really nice move, because now rook takes b7, and that looks like game over, because Vantika is simply losing the queen, and that is the final game of the 5+1 portion of this match. The match score is 6-3. I believe that was actually precisely the prediction by Smarter Chess. For once, Smarter Chess is right. That's actually really impressive. As you can see, Smarter Chess predicted a 6-3 score in the 5+1 portion of the match. That's really impressive. You don't see that very often, that Smarter Chess is right. Maybe today is the day for Smarter Chess. In any case, the match has been super exciting so far. We will go to a very short break. The players will take some rest, and we will be back shortly after the break with the 3+1 portion of the match. This is the Women's Speed Chess Championship hosted by FIDE and chess.com. We will see you in just a bit. Welcome back, everyone, to the 2022 Women's Speed Chess Championship hosted by FIDE and Chess.com. And here I have my wonderful special guest, WGM Dina Belenkaya from Madrid.
Hey, Anna-Maya, I'm so excited to be joining you at this Women's Speed Chess Championship. I'm in Madrid, that's correct, at the location of the FIDE Candidates 2022, Mis Amigos. Are you watching the candidates or I understand if you're all about Women's Speed Chess Championship, you're right. But there is also some cool things happening in Madrid. We'll talk about it later.
Absolutely. I've been following it from a distance, but the last game I've been following, last round I've been following closely. So that was very exciting yesterday, but today is a rest day and we're happy to have you here on the show of the Women's Speed Chess Championship. And the next game has started. We are now in the 3+1 portion of the match, Dina. So I'm really looking forward to some more exciting games because we have been blessed with really exciting games in the 5+1 portion of the match.
And so am I. Let's go dive into the games.
All right, we see that. So the players have been playing Grunfeld and Najdorf. Are you familiar with the Grunfeld defense?
Well, as a streamer, definitely not that much as a chess player. Is that your cup of tea, Grunfeld defense?
No.
Cool, let's then improvise.
That's what I've been doing the past hour as well. But yeah, actually they've switched it up completely because typically there was this pawn formation with pawn c3, d4, and e4, but now the pawns have completely disappeared on the board, and it looks like we might have a queen trade. Oh, okay, we don't have a queen trade on the board at least.
All right. Has the Grunfeld defense already been there in the previous games of these two ladies?
Yes, they've been playing, when Vantika was playing the white pieces, the Grunfeld defense was on the board every time, but it was with the pawns on d4 and c5. So this is a bit different from previously, but yeah, we have a similar type of position at least.
Wow. And so far, Kateryna is leading, so Vantika needs to show her cards, yeah, to fight back, and that's what she is doing right now. So computer gives slight advantage to white. I assume this is just because it's white.
Yeah, there's not much going on just yet, this very early stage in the game. But what is interesting to see is that Vantika is ahead on the clock. In the 5+1 portion of the match, Vantika was down on the clock many times, and she was having a hard time dealing with that. But currently, she's doing very well on the clock.
Oh yeah, yeah, and well, 3+1, it's a shorter time control than 5+1. I would gamble that Vantika should be a favorite here because I wouldn't see Kateryna being a stronger at, let's say, bullet time control. We're approaching bullet, and Vantika is a little bit younger, so I'm just speculating that it should be a little bit more favorite for a young Indian woman grandmaster.
We will see. And now the queens are off the board, and it's interesting to see this bishop on d5. On one hand, it's a really strong piece, but on the other hand, it's not able to move at all. So it's a really interesting contrast.
Yeah, I really love it. It looks like the perfect outpost, you know, and there is no other pawn that can chase this bishop away. So I'll be saying this is just a beast, you know. This bishop.
Absolutely. And now 97, do you see what a crazy trick Kateryna is setting up, that if bishop takes b7, there's a move knight c5 check, and if, well, you have to put the bishop back, but you'll be able to take the pawn on e4. So that's quite a crazy line that she's trying to get Vantika to take on b7.
Yeah, that's correct. And also, even if, let's say, white does some kind of king e3 is the right move, it's correct move, because there was also an idea knight b6 with idea knight takes c4. Although here I think black should really be in a hurry to, you know, maybe play f5, take on d5 with the bishop and then play f5. And I assume white is better, but the only issue for white is here to be on time to develop all the pieces, like knight f3, rook d1, rook c1, and then once white manages to do that on time, white is... Oh, bishop e6. Okay.
None of it is happening.
I don't like bishop e6, to be honest.
Yeah, you don't really want to trade that yourself, but on the other hand, I guess what Vantika why Vantika liked this move is because the pawn on e6 is a bit vulnerable, but at the same time the pawn on c5 is also vulnerable and drops right away. So yeah, it's a bit surprising decision.
That was a great move. Wait, what happened to our c5 pawn? But white is still better. We need to count the number of pawns.
Mhm.
It's so even. So I'd say we're playing endgame, and white's king is in the center. And ladies and gentlemen, you know better than we do. In the endgames, king is the strongest piece.
Absolutely. And what is interesting is that Vantika loves sacrificing pawns. Okay, she's not down a pawn in this game, but she loves being down a pawn and having a lot of compensation for that. So that's really impressive. And right now she's going for h4. She's trying to open things up on the king side.
Oh yeah, and that's a really nice move. I like it because if white manages to put the to remove the g5 pawn, which he just did, then white has a very strong center with f4, e4, and that's a potential pass pawn. Yeah, Kambir is being a little bit skeptical about white's advantage here. I assume it's because the a2 pawn is a little bit weak. Yeah, that's kind of you see that white is losing a little bit advantage here and there. Also, Kateryna has a really great endgame technique. Oh no, but
Absolutely.
I mean that would be still a little bit pity for white to not to win this game, judging the situation in the matchup as well.
Yeah, and we see a draw by repetition. I guess there was not much to play for anymore, but
Yeah, I assume
yeah.
so.
Yeah, the score, there's still a 3 point difference now, but we see once again Vantika is playing super well, and Kateryna also played really well. I think it was a really balanced game, but I feel like there was definitely a lot more in that game for the simple reason that Vantika was ahead on the clock from the start. Let's see how this Najdorf will turn out. We've seen the Najdorf many times, so they're not really switching up much, but yeah. How do you feel about the Najdorf, Dina?
I am such an expert in neither as I am in Grunfeld, but I really like Queen D3 because we just seen Queen D3 yesterday actually at the candidates. I'm trying to remember which game was that, but one thing I do remember it didn't go well. It didn't go
Oh,
well.
it was for Alireza, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It was Perugia. It didn't go well. So 23 wasn't the reason for that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, also was another line. But Queen D3 makes sense because you defend the E4 pawn. But we're already like way ahead of that. We don't have any E4 pawn anymore. We have the pawn on D5, and now Queen B5 is really strong. So like just optically, I really like White's position here.
Me too. It looks really nice. White has a lot of space advantage. The pawn before is really weak, and yeah, it's difficult to see where Black's plays. I'm guessing that if Black could play like two moves, well, okay, let's say three moves in a row, like you wouldn't be able to move the knight from f6, you'll be able to play f5 and then push the pawns e4, f4. That's how you can get some sort of play with the black pieces, but other than that, it's difficult to see. But instead, we see the pawns disappear from the board.
Yeah, I would say trading b4 versus d5 is not in white's favor because b4 doesn't do that much. You know, it's a double pawn and it's not even like chasing the c3 knight away because the knight is on b3. And d5 was actually taking a lot of space and controlling the center. So I would definitely say this trade is in black's favor.
Right, and look at the center of black, like the pawn on d6 and e5, and soon we'll see d5 on the board as well. And that's exactly what you want when you play the Sicilian.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, black now is super comfortable, but that's actually a good thing for Vitica because she's the one who needs to fight back. So that being said, I'm excited because you know I always want to have this very tense matches.
Me too. Yeah, I would really love to see a close match. And so far, I feel like the score is not really like giving like Vantika justice, because she has been putting such a great performance so far. And I feel like she could have scored many more points if it wasn't for the clock. So I'm really hoping to see that she will play faster, so the games will be much closer.
Yeah, indeed. Now the knight is on e4 doing some good job here. I'm not exactly sure what, but really good. Oh, we just saw a6 and trading the pawns once again. Trading an active pawn of white versus a passive pawn of black, but there were some other things like b2 might be a passer. Well, not now, because white chooses to trade it for d5, which I actually like, because, you know, now once again, whenever the central pawn disappears, it's always good for all the I don't know, activity, I would put it this way.
Absolutely. Now after bishop takes d5, knight f6, and as you mentioned, black doesn't really have the center anymore. I mean, there's a pawn on e5, but without the pawn on d5, it's not so clear where black's advantage is anymore. Small advantage, that is. But yeah, now it's clear that the endgame is not so not really in anyone's favor, because, well, you can take the pawn on a6. I mean, you can't really, because the knight on b3 is hanging. Oh, but a5. What about a5?
Oh, did you just see two blunders in a row? a5. White should have played rook a1, attacking the pawn, and there was not an easy way to defend it, but instead we see knight takes a5, and now rook takes b2, and it's, I assume, Kateryna thinks it's dangerous to take on b2, otherwise she wouldn't do it. And Vatika is thinking, so that makes also total sense, and takes the pawn. And now bishop. Oh, careful, don't play bishop f8, you need to play king f8. And
she does it. Yeah, gotta be really precise here, because that looked really dangerous. But now, after knight takes e5, the f7 pawn is hanging as well.
Yeah, here black does have some practical problems to resume. Still, we're giving away the pawn. Knight takes f7 should follow. And probably something like, I don't know, rook c2, attacking the c3 pawn?
Makes a lot of sense. And the problem is that you're not able to defend that pawn with rook d3 because of background problems. So that's probably why the engine is saying, yeah, call this a draw, because with the pawns on the same side of the board, and it's very clear, like there's there's no weaknesses pretty much. So it's safe to say that this game, if the game will go like progress like that, it should be a draw.
Yeah, and Kateryna is still pushing. She has a passed pawn, which is about to disappear after bishop f6.
Right.
He's not pushing anything.
The pawn will drop and they will
there's going to be a draw. You know what? I think in this game, Kateryna is the one who might feel a little bit frustrated if she sees the evil. I mean, she won't have time. But there was this moment after a5 and rook a1. And the thing is, Kateryna had time. She had like 1.5 minutes, but she played like almost immediately knight takes a5. So, I mean, it's a disappointment, but it's not a big deal because it's Blitz. It's not such a big drama.
Exactly. So,
and also now Kateryna leading, every single draw is in her favor. But I see yet another Grunfeld, and I see how fast players are playing. So it's nice to see that everyone is comfortable with their preparation so far. And you are the one who will tell me who is the first to deviate.
Yeah, so far this looks very similar from what we've seen previously. As I was mentioning with the pawns on d4 and c5, that was what we've been seeing in the 5+1 portion many times. This is similar to what we've seen in another game, and so far no deviation, Dina. So this is all the same. Yeah.
Move 17 and no deviation so far. I like how principled they are. You know, it often happens this way that chess players, especially I don't know why, but I saw that a lot in among women chess players. They're super principled about their lines, even though even though there are some losers, they still like insist on playing the same opening. Whereas like, I mean, I don't want to make any conclusions. You see what I mean? But it just happens to be very often.
Exactly. And yeah, now the move bishop b5 would exactly be the same as their previous game in this line. So I'm curious to see if Vantika will go for that again, because I believe from what I remember from that game is that Vantika had a really nice position and she was doing really well. So I don't see any problems with going for a line. If she does play bishop b5, this was exactly the same. Now bishop a4 was played in that game, which seems to be logical, but she takes instead. Okay, that's the deviation, is the first one.
That's the deviation. And now we see still more or less equal position, but well, usually where there are queens aboard, you kind of prefer white because they have center, they have activity, and black with their b6 pawn, like endgame is not that close yet, and you don't really know whether you will have a chance to make a passer out of it. Now e5 has been played. The idea here is very nice, just to bring the knight to f6, or d6, or the bishop. But on the long term, this might be also a weakness because d4 now becomes a background. No, it's backwards
pawn, I think.
Backwards, exactly. Backwards pawn. Thank you, Anna Maya.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And yeah, it has its pros and cons, and it might backfire indeed in the long term. But f6, I'm not really sure about that, because it makes sense that Kateryna is going for f6 to eliminate the fact that the d6 and f6 squares were weak. But the drawback is that the king is now a little bit exposed, and this knight might still have some squares to jump to. For example, you can think of putting the knight on e5. I'm trying to figure out how, because you'll need to spend quite a few moves, but ideally you would want to play knight f4, knight e3, and knight e5 if possible.
Yeah, well, it's kind of complicated to do it easily because of the d4 pawn. Now, queen f3 is actually preparing it. But that being said, I see rook f8, knight f4. White is actually on time because there is an attack on e6. You have to defend the next move, knight d3. I mean, still we need to calculate. And it's kind of tricky. I mean, objectively here with... from the positional point of view, is definitely white is the one who has a big advantage. But yeah, you know, bishop on c6, attacking g2, you should not underestimate this guy.
Absolutely. I mean, whenever the queen gets to d5, you have to look out for checkmate threats, and especially because there's a pawn on a2 hanging in the long term too. This pawn on a2 is pretty lonely as well, so you gotta look out for that at the same time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, what is interesting here is Kateryna is thinking. I think she's taking her longest thoughts for her first time. Would I say so?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, she spends quite some time earlier, but she is again spending quite some time, and this allows Vantika to be up on the clock this time, but not by a lot.
Yeah, and you know what? Kateryna must be understanding right now that she's in a worse situation. Now, rook f5, computer likes less because of your brilliant knight f4. I bet we'll see it soon. Fingers crossed.
Knight f4 seems like a very logical move, and as you mentioned before, attacking the pawn on e6, and I'm not sure what the follow-up is, because logical move, I mean, to defend is king f7, but that would create some more problems. But knight g3, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's a little bit pity with everything we have just said, but you know, on the other hand, I think white is still doing great. Also, there is idea h5 now, creating one more weakness, you know, trading a couple of pawns. Black king is in a serious trouble. And there is another thing, you know, once we swap the rooks off the board, white is gonna have even better advantage, because, you know, knight and the queen versus bishop and the queen, they're not the same. Although sometimes you still need more pieces, you know, to make a better advantage out of it. But what do we see now? Actually, after queen d5 and f3, is white losing their advantage?
Looks like it. Black is able to capture the pawn on a2. White will be able to regain the pawn by taking on e6, but it becomes less clear that white has an advantage here. However, you can still try to go for a kingside attack by playing the move you suggested, the move h5. So I have a feeling that Vantika will go for that, because the more draws she makes, the less chances she has to come back from the 3-point deficit.
Unless she's a killer at bullets.
True. True. You will have to see.
All right, so here we have just seen swapping the queens off the board, which is definitely not in white's favor. No, everything is straight. Yeah, Anamaya, I bet this is gonna be yet another draw. And you are right. It's just everything is happening right the way you described it right before in 5+1. It's just everything is starting with Vatica being better and better and better, and then she loses advantage.
Indeed, and this time she's doing a bit better on the clock. She's still down on the clock, but we were talking minutes behind on the clock in the 5+1 portion. So she is making progress in that sense, but it's not enough to get the full point over here.
But you know, yet all that being said, I mean, even losing such a match, it's still so, I don't know, I think it's already an achievement. In every single game, you're having an advantage against Kateryna Lagno.
Absolutely. Kateryna Lagno is not the least strong person. She is the women's world champion in rapid and blitz several times, and she is also well known to be a very strong short time control player. So this result so far is already very impressive by Fantika, who qualified for the women's beach chess championship, the main event, by winning the first qualifier.
Anama, something tells me that by the end of this match, you and me, we will just become experts in neither from Grunfeld.
I think so too, Tina.
See this over and over again. I just arrived and even I already know all these moves.
I completely agree. Yes, they have not changed the two openings whatsoever. They've been playing some sidelines here and there, but generally the main opening has been the same. So
yeah, and you know, at this point, what I think, it's super important to have, like, I don't know, a coach or someone near you, like texting you, in this game you change this move, and you're like that seconds, you know, that, or they're not allowed to take their phones between the games because they start immediately.
Yeah, but I mean, they do have this 6-minute break between the games, so they are able to check anything they want during those breaks, obviously. But I'm guessing that it will be too much of a distraction.
Yeah,
during
right.
the
But
game.
that is between the time control portions, but not between each game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would be cool. You know, you're not cheating. You just have someone who tells you next game you change this move in this line, and boom. I heard there was a really nice story about Nazi Paikidze, how she won US championship, her first or her second. Like, there was this tie break, and I think she was playing with Jennifer Yu. I mean, I might be mistaken. Actually, chat knows better, but yeah, it was a tiebreaker, and they were repeating the line, and someone just came there and gave an advice, and boom, she won the tiebreak.
Wow. Yeah, that helps a lot.
That was a very beautiful story, but I think we need to dive into the moves.
Oh, we'd love to hear those stories. We've only been focusing on the games. We could have some fun stories. And I'm sure you have a lot, especially now that you're in Madrid.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, now commentating Women's Chess Championship, you know, I have way more joyful memories about me playing in professional chess, and, like, you know, championship, women Europeans, women world championship rapid and blitz. We played, by the way, in the latest women's European. Anamaya, that was a great game.
It was, and I got away with some tactics.
Yeah, you beat me, and I will not forget that. All right, let's see what we have on the board. Knight b3, rook takes b3, and bishop a5. Is that gonna be yet another draw?
Looks like it. I don't really see how either side can make big progress here. I see Kateryna trying to play g3. Is she trying to play f4? But that would weaken many pawns in her pawn structure, so I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, and I really like how black plays g6, and then f5 is coming, and once again center. If black manages to push like f5, e4, wow. And also, do not forget, we have opposite colored bishops. So that being said, everything can change in any minute.
Right, and I see rook a3 is already creating a threat because b4 was in the air, the bishop was pinned, so that's why the rook went back to c8. And yeah, it's not over just yet. It's too early to call it a draw right away, but it's definitely in the draw range for the time being because, well, the opposite color bishops, you'd say that one side has some advantage because of it, because it's able to attack a certain pawn more times than the opponent is able to defend. But in this situation, it's hard to find a way for either side to make progress.
Absolutely. Now I like how bishop came to b6 and now having this really strong diagonal, you know, bishop c5 next and threatening to f2. One day, who knows, rook coming to a2. Here we need to be a little bit careful because b4 might come, but maybe that's not that dangerous. I mean, yeah, black is definitely having an advantage. Once again, I want to see f5 and d4. Also, you know, like controlling the light square bishop of whites would be nice.
Right, and Vantika played a very strong move, rook a1, and like this, she's able to play bishop a7, and the bishop is very safe over there. And at the same time, the rook is very actively placed, and now the pawn on c3 becomes a big target.
Yeah, indeed. And even if white plays, let's say c4, they still don't have time to prepare and push c5, I believe, because once again, f5, let's see, f5, rook c2, e4, boom. And then what?
Yep, and that looks really convincing.
Yeah, there are some ideas like rook b1, and if c5, then d takes c5, and white cannot take with b pawn. And that being said, I want to remind that the rook on b5 is a little bit weird. One could say it's super strong, but from another point, it's actually not having so many squares.
You could actually play b6 if you want, and it's completely trapped.
Oh, yeah. And now I really like how bishop comes to d4. Funny thing, computer doesn't like it, but that looks really nice. Oh, we have c5 immediately. That makes sense.
Ooh, this looks quite dangerous for black with the pawn on d6 now. Oh, I guess there's rook c3 though, and you're losing the pawn on c5 anyways.
Yeah, you know, one of those cases you don't understand who's actually in the biggest danger. And that and then everything finishes in a quiet draw. Like all bishop opposite colors and games.
Very anticlimactic.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, once again, imagine like, okay, we swap b7 versus d6, and then there's yet another draw. Wait, what? Yet another draw, but who is the pawn up?
Vantika. Oh. That was a bit surprising.
Again, Vantika who's the pawn up. Do you see what I mean?
Yep.
Girl is having an advantage after in every single game versus Grandmaster, world champion, Kateryna Lagno.
Does, and that's why it's so impressive from her play. But she's really not able to convert those games because Kateryna is so strong. She is so resourceful.
Yeah, and here, I mean, obviously draw, but still you can play. You know what? Once I won such an end game in a classical game versus an international master, Anastasia Bodnaruk. Exactly, I had these 4 pawns, and Anastasia had 3. I mean, maybe h4, h5, I don't remember, but it's doable. You know, sometimes it's doable.
Sometimes it is. I also successfully won this endgame, but I was very young and I was playing the World Youth Championship. So it's really cool if you've ever been able to convert this to a win, but it should be close to impossible.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that sometimes is not going to happen here, apparently. But that was a good try. That was a good try.
For sure. There's a lot of reasons to still try. And she's trying to... keep the king on the edge of the board, but it's not enough because this rook on f7 just covers the f file very well.
Yeah, she's trying not to lose on time, most importantly.
Indeed, and we see the draw on the board.
Another draw. Okay, so Grunfeld, let's go.
You
right moments.
Maybe we actually have a different line. Wow, Dina, we have a first deviation. Okay, actually, I spoke too soon.
Oh, nice.
So apparently this is called the Neo Grunfeld. We're okay. We're still in some Grunfeld.
Neo Grunfeld, nice. You see, like we'll end up knowing even not only one line, but even 2 in Grunfeld. That's so exciting. One commentary and you already know the opening. I mean, at least you can try it.
Absolutely. Okay, we see. I honestly like Black's position quite a lot. Like the knights are very active now, c5 and e4. This bishop has a lot of squares to go to. Oh, are we gonna head to another draw? You think?
Well, here I definitely see white is having an advantage because of better development. Rook coming to c7, not staying there for too long. But yeah, better development, a little bit better activity, symmetrical positions. I really love the bishop on g2. Oh, this is such a great bishop. Attacking on b7. The other guy is a little bit too late for the party. But there is this knight on d6 covering his spots. All right.
Yes. And yeah, it's difficult to make progress here with the white pieces, but I also agree with the fact that white has some sort of advantage, but it's gonna take some time till like we can see if Antica is able to create some play here, because the position looks quite symmetrical, but yeah, the difference is this bishop on g2 is much stronger, and I have a feeling we're going to an endgame with the minor pieces now. Interesting.
Yeah, white is pushing. Now e5 is coming. If knight goes away, then bishop cannot so easily come like develop. But e5 black is playing, and that's probably because that was really not comfortable to be so passive.
Makes a lot of sense that you sacrifice the pawn for some activity. This bishop will be more open, and she realizes that with the pawn on e4, this bishop on g2 is not so great anymore. So now we see the pawn got recaptured, as it was very difficult to keep on defending that pawn. And if you're able to capture another pawn like the pawn a7, you'll be much happier. But the question is, do you want to take the pawn, risking the fact that the knight on a7 might get trapped?
Yeah, she does.
She does.
She does. I mean, bishop f1, knight b5, or a4 and knight b5 should be not a big deal. And once again, extra pawn for Vatica. How come? This is really...
Yeah. It's becoming a pattern.
King g1 is the only move, and she does it.
She does it. She was forced to play it because the pawn h2 was hanging, and now knight e3. Okay, I'm guessing you can just move the bishop.
Yeah, just move it somewhere, like bishop d3, I assume. Bishop e2 is the right move, computer says, probably because we do not want that knight to enter, to go to g4. Knight c3, a little bit less privileged by the engine. I think the biggest problem here for white is to find the fastest way to activate their king. And for that, we could probably, once again, bishop e2 would make sense. Yeah, you prepare king f2.
Right. And yeah, it's still very difficult. Despite the fact that Vantika is up a pawn, it will take a long time until she's able to convert this to a big advantage, because black is playing really solid, and the knights are very actively placed. But now we see actually a trade of the knights.
Yeah, there is this tactic that's sacrificing the d5 pawn could actually help white to trade it over f7. Let's say king takes d5, bishop c4, and bishop f7. But the thing is, black doesn't have to take this pawn. Besides, we can even play bishop. Can we play bishop f5? Bishop f5, and then bishop g2, bishop b1, and bishop a2, and boom, we swap the pawn. And here, white is the one who needs to be careful, because it's an endgame, and your king is resting at home. He needs to go outside, take some fresh air, relax, chill. It's a rest day at the candidates after all.
Indeed, the king needs to join the party in the center, and let's see if she will decide to do that, because now bishop f5, as you mentioned, bishop b1 is a huge threat that could be really annoying. As she plays king f2, all right.
Yeah, well, at least Vatica heard us, and now she's bringing her bishop. Yeah, another draw on Amaya. Beautiful, beautiful. How, I'm proud for these players to see them being so solid. I think all those draws, in a way, it's also because they play good. They play good chess. That's why so many draws.
They do, and that makes this match so amazing. You would say that the match is really unbalanced. We have Kateryna, a super strong player, very experienced in both classical and shorter time controls. But we have Vantika. She's very talented, young player, and she has been playing super well. And I feel like this match score should be much closer because, well, seeing how Vantika has been playing, but that doesn't take away the fact that Kateryna has been playing how she typically plays very strong as well. So this match altogether is really close.
Oh yeah, well, it's impressive. How many games have we already?
Oh no, just as we were saying. Oh,
wait. This is super complicated. It
is.
What's wrong here? Let's try to understand. I think b4 is actually wrong.
So apparently the only move to win here is b5 because you're fixing the pawns on the queen side and you're pretty much taking the opposition because you're creating a pass pawn. She plays b5. Wow,
that's the most logical move. You just you just stop your opponent from having a pass pawn. But why did white play b4? Like, wasn't a3 a little bit more careful? I mean, computer says it's lost anyway, but the b4 is not a human move. Okay, you know, we might have been praising too much Vatica, and that's what brought her bad luck.
Yeah, we jinxed her, unfortunately for her, but yeah, Kateryna is confirming this very precisely.
Wow, that's actually a great game to analyze for the in terms of learning, because I believe the mistake was h takes g5, but it's not so easy to understand what's wrong. I mean, if I were to explain in the words, I would say just whenever you're in the pawn endgame and both have pass pawns, and you just need to be fast to create your pass pawns. So I would say don't lose time on the edge where you have less pawns and advance your faster pawns to distract the king. But that's all that I can say about that endgame. Anyways, we're here in Najdorf once again.
Indeed, and this was the line we've seen in the very first games of the Najdorf, where Kateryna is maneuvering her knight from d4 to f3 to d2 to c4 all the way to e3. And this is a really interesting line because she's giving away the dark squared bishop for the knight. But she does get, in return for that, she does get this very active setup with the knights in the center.
Indeed, I really love this, both knights controlling the d5 square. I even saying to myself, I should probably study this line. I want to try it with white.
It looks really interesting, right? I have never seen it before.
Yeah, and you do play Sicilian, so I could even try it against you in the next match.
I do. I tend to do that. So yeah, perhaps.
Yeah, but you do not play Najdorf.
No, I don't. It's too much theory. It's really hard to get started with an opening like Najdorf. Yeah,
you will try against me next time. So just so that I try to see Kateryna's idea with both knights here. Really like it.
I like what Vantika has been doing, so I'll take her repertoire then.
Perfect. We agreed. So we have this knight on f5 and the knight on d5. This I understand a little bit less, because if, let's say, bishop takes f5, pawn takes f5. I mean, it's a nice pawn on f5, but the center is less controlled. I am a little bit skeptical about it.
Right. It looks like a logical move on first sight because, well, your knight wants to go to a really nice square. But as you mentioned, after bishop takes f5, e takes f5, there's a doubled pawn structure. The center will be less strong, and it's very difficult to see how white could continue anything over there. The only problem for black here is that this bishop on g5 is not doing much. It looks really pretty on g5, but it's actually being dominated by this knight on d5, and it's difficult to see where this bishop is heading to. Oh yeah. Here computer suggests b5 for black. It makes total sense. Right. It's a logical move in this opening, and especially if you're able to attack a piece with that move, that's even more ideal. But instead, Vantika took on f5, which makes a lot of sense in my opinion, but the engine is very unhappy with it. Yeah, I also saw that. Like, the move we expected the least for black, and no, the most for black is actually not computer's approval. Right, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to see how Engine is really happy with White's position. Because I mean, to us it feels like it's not so great because this pawn on f5 is pretty vulnerable, and at the same time also blocking a lot of squares for White, because it's hard to see how White will be able to start an attack on the king side.
Yeah, but willing to justify White, I now start understanding the idea behind. It is in fact that we are yet again in another opposite colored bishops. But here, look at the bishop on g5 and try to compare it with the bishop on d5. Bishop on g5 has no active position. I mean, it looks good in this diagonal, but it doesn't control anything. Whereas bishop on d5, he's the king of the board.
Absolutely, this bishop on d5 is really strong, and the pawn on a5, it is on one hand a weakness, but on the other hand, it's really well defended by both the queen and the rook. But now it's traded off, and we see this b pawn being a passed pawn. Is Vantika able to stop that?
Oh, that one looks so dangerous. Oh my gosh. I would say it's an easy win for Kateryna.
I believe so too. It's with some good technique, it's pretty easy to convert because you're just able to push that pawn all the way. You have to be careful of moves like queen b6, but I'm sure there are some tactics in the air, like bishop takes f7, rook takes f7 is being played. And this looks crushing because rook takes f7 is followed by bishop takes, and after king takes, there's queen b3 check.
Yeah, and I was just about to say there was not only the pass pawn, which is one weakness, but also second weakness, which is f7, and we see how Kateryna used it. So yeah, opposite colors. One, what can we say? Opposite colors, bishops. It's all about activity. It's all about activity of your bishop and the restriction of the other one. And here, I think we learned the lesson. Bishop takes f5 was a critical mistake.
I agree. And this goes to show like the difference between the opposite color bishops, because this bishop on g5 had a really rough time defending the pawn on f7 because it was not from the same color. It could not defend it like that. So that's also why such an imbalance can create such interesting positions.
Indeed. So yeah, that's soon it's gonna be a resignation, and Vatika here should actually. I mean, Vatika is the one who is lower on scores, so she needs to play more games. So if you see her is lost, you just resign and start a new game. I wanted to say this loss. I mean, it's not a loss yet, but this upcoming loss might actually be the sequence of the previous accident. Sometimes psychologically it's very difficult to recover.
Yeah, exactly. And Vantika is trying to have a final trick there with the back ring, but it was defended, and Kateryna was not moving that rook whatsoever.
Yeah. Do we know how old Vantika is?
I believe she's from 2002, so she's either 19 or 20 years old.
All right, so she's still junior.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, very impressive play. I mean, once again, I repeat, regardless of the result of this match, it's an impressive play versus such a strong player, and it deserves a lot of respect. And wow, h5, Vantika is out there to fight. She's not giving up.
Exactly. She has been really aggressive throughout the match, and it has been rewarding quite a lot, honestly. You would say that if you play so aggressively, it will backfire a lot. But throughout the match, I've noticed that she loves pushing the h-pawn with both sides, both with black and white. But yeah, she's been holding up really well with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The idea of h5 is to attack. Obviously, that's why black played h4. That's why black played h5. And here, white is having an advantage because first of all, it looks like King's Indian, and then King's Indian, yes. White has advantage every single time. But also here, yeah, I mean, there is a possibility to attack the king, and we shall see that.
Right, and in this situation, the addition of h4, h5, I feel like it creates some interesting plays here because typically what black wants to do here is attack on the king side and throw all the pawns on the king side over here, especially with the move f5. But it's in this position that I feel like the attack will not be as strong because of the addition of h4. It does weaken the square g4, but the knight is not able to do much over there just yet.
Yeah, that's correct. And it seems like here play for white is super easy. You just play f3, the most natural move. You kick out this knight. You don't want him to be, bothering you. And then you just push g4 and let's go. Party time.
Exactly. Bishop e3 now. And okay, Kateryna plays
Bishop a3 is a starter,
f6.
definitely.
Oh, 96. Okay. Yeah, the interesting
nice.
yeah,
Sacrificing a pawn and white
she
squares.
loves to do that.
Yeah, white squares. They are more important than the pawn.
Yeah, she values that. She evaluates that really well because she considers. I mean, in almost all of the positions where she sacrificed a pawn, she had a reason for it and a very good one as well.
Yeah, well, I'm really impressed. I mean, I cannot stop praising Vantika's play here. Wow. You can just castle along and say, I'm not in a hurry. I'm gonna mate you anyway.
Exactly. Knight d5 is threatening knight c7.
Correct. And also castling long is just bringing another rook, extra piece to the attack.
Right, and she does it. Wow.
Yay. I mean, the most natural at the same time. But okay, knight d4.
Okay.
Okay, not winning this game would be a very big missed opportunity. Knight g6, and we already have the material.
Yeah, knight g6 would make things much easier. Yeah, you're not afraid of moves like bishop h6 because you always have f4.
Yeah, and well, queen e4 and bishop d3. f4, queen e4, bishop d3.
Right. Yeah, you have to be really precise still.
Bishop d3. Come on. Bishop d3. I mean, the most natural. Wait, what? Why does computer not like it?
I guess because of queen e3. And yeah, if you trade and there's a pawn on e3, that's really dangerous. And this pawn on f4 is also a bit loose.
Can we play just put the rook on g1?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, you don't have to take material right away because once again, this king is so exposed. Might as well go for some attack while you're at it.
Yeah, that being said, probably rook g1 before knight g6 would have been more correct. Just so good. But okay. Yeah, I mean, on practical level here, it's going to be a little bit harder to convert, but still should not be a problem.
Right.
4 is not possible. Oh, black is not winning the f-pawn. Then life is good.
Yeah, but it's not so clear for white anymore because now, I mean, obviously white is up in exchange, but the position is quite complicated still. Like, it's not so easy to convert this. This bishop on h6 is pretty annoying, and there's a lot of weaknesses in white's position.
Yeah, but I think the biggest argument here for white is going to be the h5 pawn. It's on the white square, and sooner or later, bishop will take it, and then white will have a pass pawn, and that's all you need. Oh, wait. That was whoa.
That was not your plan.
That was not my plan. I don't agree. I do not agree. What's that?
Looks like there is some crushing attack here, but it's very unclear to see. I'm guessing there's queen g8, king e7, bishop g6, and the knight can't move because of checkmate. Okay.
Wow.
Same idea still?
It looks so easy because all black will have is just rook e2 and then king b1 and that's it. Queen g8 and bishop g6. This is what you wanted. So go for it. You wanted it. You asked for it yourself, not us.
Right. It becomes really complicated. And that's why Vantika is now taking her time. But she's down to 8 seconds. She needs to move. Okay, yes. She does queen g8.
And bishop g6, pre-move.
She does it.
Yay, let's go.
And yeah, rookie 2, you're not afraid, you're just gonna hide. You're just gonna run away to B1 and life's good.
Yeah, queen e6. What do we do on queen e6?
I'm not sure if, I mean, are we happy with a trade?
Wow.
Okay, she goes king B1.
Nice. We're not in a rush.
Oh, D3 is worrying. Okay, she decides to trade, but where is the advantage now? Because this pawn, you're not stopping it like that.
That's what I meant. We didn't find it ourselves. So how did we want to find it? Oh, wait. It's just some kind of a roller coaster.
It is, because if you take, you have a big problem over here. She has to play passively now to defend, and
queen h5. No.
Oh my goodness, that was either mouse up or she just didn't expect the bishop h6 to be possible. Oh, this is a huge upset for Vantika because she had such a beautiful game.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I said. Oh, that was such a ouch, 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 ouch. That's painful, really painful.
It really is. She was winning throughout the entire game, but in the final seconds of her clock, she completely misplayed it. And that goes to show, like, Kateryna is so resourceful despite being so lost in the position. She still had some tricks up her sleeves, and that's really impressive still.
Exactly. That's also a very big lesson to learn from Kateryna, is to fight until the end and to always find resources and not to resign. Like, I mean, mentally not to resign.
Exactly. That's so important. And it can save you so many points. And I feel like that's also being underestimated a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here we see yet another knight, and I really love how over and over again, white is taking control of the d5.
Indeed. We've seen this position previously in one of the other Nidorf games.
In all the other Nidorf games, yeah. Okay, in several Nidorf games. Let's put it this way. What I like about this one is that we have the piece on d5. We don't have a pawn on d5, and it's really nice. It's really nice to control it. We were speaking another at some moment about b5 and d5. So I mean, everybody knows it, but just to clarify, b5 and d5 are two main ideas in any Sicilian of black. So either one or another, but ideally both. And here black cannot push the d pawn. It's a backward pawn. It's a weakness. And I love it. I'm also, I truly believe that I'm a positional player. So I always love how Sicilians can be that positional by white.
True, yeah, and there are quite a few lines that are quite positional, so you're absolutely right. And this is, I believe, one of those. It's less sharp, and it's mostly about the control of the d5 square. And here we see Vantika sacrificing the pawn because it was really difficult to see how she could defend the pawn when it was on b4.
Oh yeah, I know the knight on c5. It actually is very sweet here for black. I like this idea.
Right, and now rook b4, and what is happening? Rook takes b4, knight e3 check!
I told you, it's all about psychology.
Oh my goodness, I actually did not see that at first. It took me a second to see that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Vantika did not stand the pressure, I believe. It's just, it happens so, like, you lose one painful game, and then, is it like 4 losses in a row?
This was her first win, right? She was playing with the black pieces.
Yeah, no, yeah.
First win in the 3+1 portion.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, yeah, that's correct. Wow. Yeah, I'm confused. But that's good. It's good that I have you. It's good that you have me and I have you. It's good that we have each other.
Exactly. We like fill out, the gaps that like we're missing some information. We fill them for each other.
Yeah, that's what we call cooperation.
Exactly.
Well, in chess, cooperation, by the way, means completely different thing. It actually means helping each other to play like the worst chess and Yeah. But okay. It's like, king versus knight, king and knight versus king and knight can be lost, but only because of cooperation.
Right.
Like,
right.
computer will say
Yeah.
it's a draw, and chess.com will stop your game and say it's a draw if you play a game like this.
Yeah.
But theoretically, it's possible to get mated there.
Yeah, it's because of so you have the FIDE rules that are saying that this is you can still play on and you can still lose, if you play horribly wrong. But the USCF rules are just automatically saying that's a draw.
Yeah, that's correct. So Vantika has just won her game, to clarify. I understood that. And now she's back into action. She needs to catch Kateryna by 5 points. It means 5 games. She still has 1 or 2 games in this portion, and then there's going to be bullets.
Right, there's 5 minutes left in this portion, and we're back to the Grunfeld, and this time the queens are already off the board. We haven't seen that many times. Typically the rooks are being traded, but now with the queens off the board, it's a bit different, because now it means that there is not really a kingside attack possible, because, well, you need your queen for that to make it work.
Exactly. Well, another Grunfeld structure, and endgame. Here I'm definitely in black's favor. We have a center. White has a center, but no queens. Oh, wait, another blunder.
Knight takes d4, and after knight takes d4, you take with the bishop, and then the bishop drops. And if knight takes d4, bishop takes d8, there's knight takes e2 check. Oh.
Wow, there's a check. Bishop comes with a check on d4.
You have to play really precisely here. Let's see if Kateryna finds it. Okay, she does it. Knight takes d4. And the reason why this is winning is because of the tension in on the C and D file with the rooks, and it will be very difficult for white to hold on to the bishop that will soon. Oh, actually, rook takes c3 right away is just simply crushing it, because after rook takes c3, there's bishop takes d4. She decided to play bishop takes b5 instead, but after knight takes b5, it's just a trade.
Oh no, Kateryna did not find the second part of the combination, and yet it was such an easy one for her level, but time pressure. It's a blitz game.
I guess she doesn't want to risk much, but yeah, she did not, she missed the opportunity. Maybe she confused some lines and played one of the moves that she wanted to play later on. You never know what goes through someone's mind. Crazy things happen.
Absolutely. Here, I expect e5 and bishop d4. It didn't happen. Well, for obvious reasons, because knight b5 is coming back. Now, bishop needs to be removed. And, well, just as you said, Anna-Maya, Kateryna is leading, and every draw is in her favor. I mean, as long as she can keep bullet, because, I mean, who knows? Like, I had those matches against some ladies where blitz portion, you can win it, but if you're not good enough in bullet, Anna-Maya.
You're really holding a grudge against me, aren't you?
Yes, exactly. Doesn't matter how many points you lead in blitz. If you're not good enough in bullet, if you're not fast enough, you can lose the match.
Yeah, it can go. It can get really rough, because bullet will decide a lot, and especially because you have so many games in bullet, and yeah, I have yet to see, like, I noticed Vantika is down on the clock many times, but I wouldn't say that she has been playing worse significantly when she was long on the clock compared to Kateryna. I feel like Kateryna has a small edge in the shorter time controls, but anything can happen.
Yeah. Also, we do need to take into consideration that it's going to be not the usual bullet, but 1+1. So it's almost like blitz if you know well the opening, which both of them do. So it's like in the end you're in the middle game with 1 minute on the clock. It's in 1 second increment. It's that being said, it actually might not change that much for let's say imagine some of them were super strong in bullet, because you cannot really flag.
Have you do you have experience in 1+1?
I definitely have a better experience with 1+1 than 1+0. If that's what you're asking.
No, I'm just like I'm
yeah.
just asking,
last
like,
year
I haven't
we had
played it.
Yeah, last year we had 6 or 8 qualifiers for Women's Speed Chess Championship.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh,
yeah. The bishop is hanging.
And Vatica is thinking.
What? It was completely missed. Oh my goodness, what?
You know, that couple of seconds that Vatica took before taking the bishop, you could say she didn't see that. You could say she didn't see that. Otherwise, she would do it immediately.
Oh my goodness, both players completely missed the bishop hanging.
Yeah, they're too concentrated on how to outplay each other with
yeah, in a very calm way.
Yeah, but wow, that was a very big shock and misfortune for white.
Wow. That goes to show, like, anything can happen. Like, you don't know at what point. Like, we had earlier, we had another like blunder like that, and it was completely ignored by the opponent. It just happens.
Yeah, that's really weird. But all right, here we are in a soon-to-be draw. Even though black is pawn up, that's not enough, unfortunately.
And this is also the last game of the 3+1 portion. So after this game, we will be heading to the bullet section.
That's gonna be the most exciting part, and the only chance for Vatica to fight back.
Absolutely. She has plenty of games, but she has a very big deficit, 5-point difference that she will need to come back from. So she will need to work really hard in the bullet portion of this match.
Yeah, but it's such a big difference, 1+0 and 1+1. It's you know, like now having given it a thought, I actually understand that chances are pretty low of Vatica to fight back, because of this increment.
Right, this increment doesn't matter so much. It really changes the game that you typically see in bullet, where pieces fly left and right. It happens less in 1+1, and the game ended in a draw. So that concludes the 3+1 portion of this match. The score is now 11.5 to 6.5 for Kateryna. She's ahead 5 points now. So we will shortly, after this short break, we will move on to the 1+1 portion of this match. This is the 2022 Women's Speed Chess Championship hosted by FIDE and Chess.com. We will be back shortly after this break. Trent, right? Trent. Sorry? Oh. The I'm Not a GM Speed Chess Championship is returning tonight, everyone. Tonight, well, for my time zone, 6 p.m. CET. Right after the show of the Women's Speed Chess Championship, we are returning with James Canty III playing against Lawrence Trent. Very exciting matchup. I'm very looking forward to this matchup. And the winner of this matchup is facing Eric Rosen in the finals. So make sure to stick around as soon as this match is over of the Women's Speed Chess Championship 2022, hosted by FIDE and Chess.com. And yeah, Tina, I hope you are as excited as I am for this match.
Wasn't it Eric Rosen who beat Danny?
I believe so.
Anyways, I'm curious if Lawrence Trent is going to play from Madrid, because he was there right on Monday, and he was about to stay for some days, but that is going to be a super exciting match.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Now let's have a look at the Smarter Chess predictions, the very amazing predictions by Smarter Chess, because typically they're wrong, but today it looks like a very good day for Smarter Chess, Dina, because the prediction of the 3+1 section was 6-3, but the end result of this portion was 5.5 to 3.5. So that is pretty close. And for the 1+1 portion of the match, the prediction is 5.5 to 4.5. Let's see how the ladies will resume in the match.
Yeah, it's the only chance for Vantika to fight back. This is the third and the last portion of this match, and it's now or never. You continue round of 8, or you get knocked out.
Right. It's a very tough format, not a double elimination bracket, but once you're out, you're completely out of the field. And that's why the matches are so important. Each of them are very important. And let's see, the ladies are setting up, and shortly we will start with the 1+1 portion of the match. Do you think this will be a close score, or do you think one person will have a big lead?
Definitely Vantika will be leading. This is my stakes, but I'm not sure she will make it up to 5 wins to catch Kateryna. I'm not sure. It's a tough thing, once again, simply because it's 1+1 and not 1+0. But you know, I'm saying that, but bullet rating is actually Kateryna is the one who's the favorite. So who knows? Maybe it's just gonna be a very fast cut by Kateryna.
Yeah, and we're back to the Najdorf. What a surprise. And this time, I mean, throughout the match, Vantika has been spending quite some time on how to respond to the openings of Kateryna. But as the match has progressed, she knows how to deal with the openings, and she's been playing very well. So that will give her some edge in this time control, because she knows what to play now. She knows the idea, she knows which moves to make, more or less, and it seems like she's simply repeating what she's been doing previously.
Absolutely, and most importantly, it worked really well for her. So she has all the right and to repeat it, and that's the decision to make here. Look at this, bishop coming to d5. We've seen this already before, haven't we?
We have seen this before. Oh, this time the knight is jumping to d5. But if Vantika decides to take the bishop on with the bishop, the knight on d5, then we'll get a similar position what we had previously, and that does not that does not favor black so much.
Yeah, honestly, I do not understand why black repeats here. Black is clearly worse every time he gets this opening. I mean, at least this exact line, I really love it. And for white, and well, Kateryna is up on time.
Correct. Vantika is down to 25 seconds. That does not hurt so much just yet, but the game pretty much, we're still at an early stage of the game. Anything can still happen. There's a lot of pieces on the board. And yeah, there's a lot of tension in the center now. I mean, with the knight on d5, it is not defended by a pawn just yet. But okay, knight e3 is an interesting decision to retreat.
Oh yeah, I know. Bishop g6. Black has a pair of bishops, but how active is bishop on h6? That is the biggest question, and the answer is coming right now. It's been taken away from the board, so it wasn't active at all. It's such an easy position for white here, and yeah, I'm doubting Vantika's opening choices now.
Yeah, this position is much easier to play for white, as you mentioned. Like, white has so much space. It's obvious what white is playing for. There's a few weaknesses in black's position, and in white's position there is very, very little to be worried about. So yeah, now the bishops are also off the board, but now it's becoming more and more clear the pawn is dropping on h4, and this is pretty over.
This is over, absolutely, yeah. Well, you saw how black actually ruined his own king safety as well. Well, simply black needed to fight, and yeah, no, this is not the right way. This is not the right way. This is not how we expected, you know, trying to expect. Oh, wait, something happened.
Wait a second, they're trading off an equal endgame all of a sudden. What?
How did that happen?
I looked to my right, and then suddenly all the pieces were being traded off.
This would be the best saver ever so far for Vantika.
Yeah, what a comeback all of a sudden. I mean, obviously she's not able to win this game, but
it's still a draw instead of losing, so it still gives her chances to fight back.
Absolutely. And okay, the game is still going on, but
King G2, very important move.
It's difficult to make progress for either side whatsoever.
Yeah, it's very important here to keep the king on g2 and h2 in order to avoid that, you know, that's
oh my god, check, and e2 was completely winning. Oh,
because a2, that's what I'm saying, a2 and then rook g1, and yes, but okay, Vantika knows it. Keep your king on g2, baby. That's it.
Oh my goodness, and the draw
is... that was exactly what I was saying. You know, rook attacking the e-pawn, and then a2, and then rook g1 on time, check, and promoting the pawn.
Wow, that was a huge opportunity for Vantika, and unfortunately for her, she was not able to find it, as she was playing with seconds on her clock. She was pretty much moving left and right. I think what she had in mind was, I just want to have the draw and go next, because I know, you know, she knows it's a draw, and if something crazy happens, like, she'll try to adjust, but she was so low on the clock, it just slipped her mind that she could play rook g1 check.
Yeah, well, we have yet another Grunfeld, but this is kind of weird because here we have it with h5, h4, and I believe previous time we had h5, h4, the center was closed.
Correct. Yeah. So, and I think we're heading towards that too. Now, after d5, there is a move bishop takes c3 check, but you're not afraid of that as much because after bishop takes a1, queen takes a1, you'll have the very strong bishop removed from the board, and it will be compensating that for the exchange. You'll be down.
Absolutely. Well, look at this queen on d4. I really love it, and the center here, I'd say white is the one who is having the advantage.
I like the move e5. It's not favored by the engine, but what I do like is that Vantika is trying to open up the position as much as possible. She knows she has the activity in this position. This bishop is not developed, and this king, it went short castle right now, and you can see already that the king is very exposed over there. So it feels like Vantika has practical chances here, but she needs to be careful, because at the same time her king is on f1, and f2 can become a big target.
Oh yeah, it's funny, in this position you ask yourself, whose king is actually weaker here? And the answer is not clear.
I agree. Now bishop g4 comes to mind, because if the bishop is removed, then there is checkmate threats on f2.
Bishop on f3 is very passive, whereas the bishop on f5 is like super, super cool here, controlling the g6, the diagonal. Now, rook coming to c2, I don't like white's position at all.
Okay, Vantika is still trying to defend the pawn on f2 by playing rook e3. Okay, queen d6. Now, what's going on here?
Rook e6. Oh, it's a mate.
Oh my goodness, it's back rank. The queen is covering. Oh,
Queen
what a
d6,
beautiful
taking
tactic.
the control of h2 and the idea rook c1, so easy, and yet white didn't see that coming.
Oh, we can't relay the game that was played just now, but rook e6, what a beautiful tactic.
Yeah, rook e6 and bishop takes e6 and queen g6. Check it. At least you have a perpetual, and then you see how to mate if you want.
Wow, what an ending of that game. Wow, it's so surprisingly, like how it turns around so quickly.
Yeah, but you know, the biggest lesson I've learned here, I really love this knight by Kateryna Lagno.
Yes, it's so nicely placed, and it's so easy to play with the white pieces. But I do have to say that Vantika is dealing with this very well, considering the circumstance. Like, it looks pretty bad and it looks really hard to deal with, but she has been handling the positions really well.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. She's there are definitely way more games where Vantika was having an advantage. And all right, we have a clear advantage here for white in this particular position. Backward pawn, d6, b pawn is still on the 7th rank, not even moved to b5. As I said, if in the Sicilian black does not manage to do either b5 or d5, then he should question his life choices.
Very well said, Dina. And now we see b5 on the board, but this allows a takes b6 en passant, chat's favorite move. And this pawn on a6 once again becomes a huge weakness.
Exactly. I really love the knight on c4, controlling b2, attacking the queen, but also avoiding d5 because of knight takes c5 and attacking the d6 pawn, the most important.
Knight takes e5. What a tactic.
Move. Oy, oy, oy.
Vantika is missing those tactics, and it's clear that Kateryna is playing so much better in this time control.
It looks like such an easy match now for Kateryna, although looking at all the games, yet she was so sweating.
Right, Vantika made it really difficult for Kateryna, so big props to her, but Kateryna is playing much better now in the bullet portion of the match. She's spotting the tactics whenever they arise, and it's really impressive.
Yeah, but I definitely haven't yet gave up on Vantika's chances in the match because 20 more minutes here, so many more games to go.
True. There's still a lot of games left. There's a 7-point deficit now, but you never know what can happen. And bullet can change everything.
Did you just call it deposit?
No? What?
7 points deposit? Deficit. Okay, I was like, wow, what a bank term. I love it. 7 points deposit on on Kateryna's bank account at chess.com.
Yeah, it would be generous, huh?
Yeah, I love it. I think this term should be considered, especially for such formats.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good one.
All right, let's see what we have here. White is rolling in the center, but yet computer says black is better. Is that because of the g7 bishop?
Yeah, now e5 has been played, and yeah, this bishop on g7 is not the greatest, but this knight has some squares that it can access. So yeah, there's some interesting dynamic in this position.
Absolutely. And yet we see, guys, remember this e5 move. We saw it already. Weakening the d4, but saying, I have my chances with e4, knight to e4, knight to f6, knight to d6, knight to c5. Well, there's a bishop already there, but you get it. You give something away, but you get something which is even bigger. And it's again Vantika who does it, as far as I remember.
Absolutely. And she's now on 30 seconds on the clock. So she is low on the clock right now, but she definitely has some practical chances here.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. These chances are real. I mean, taking on d5 was really good. That's what I said. That's my knight. He came to
That's
e4.
your knight. Yeah, it jumps to e4. And I would love to see g4 f5 in the game. Like, even though if it's very risky, I really love to see that. Oh, she goes h4 instead. All right, it counts.
Yeah, h5. Wow, beautifully played.
Okay.
Wow.
Now what's next? Rook f3, yeah?
Rook h3, knight g5. There is such a nice party here going on. Although, what's next?
Yeah, it's not so clear, right? Yeah, there's so much action. Like, Kateryna has been pushing her pawns on the queen side a lot. Oh, wait a sec. What? What's happening?
Knight e5 was not a blunder?
No, the queen was attacking the rook on b3.
Oh, no. Oh, wow.
What is happening? Oh, my goodness. 96?
96.
The queen takes c5 was the move. But still 96. Okay, there we go.
No, you can take it. You can take it. There is no threat.
Mm-hmm.
Just be careful. Don't move the rook from h3.
Yes, this one needs to stay there.
Wow. So many action happening.
Both players are on
rook
4 seconds now.
Come on, yeah, rook d7. Go for it.
There she goes.
Yes. And now just do something good. Great advice from Dina. Just do something good.
Absolutely. But yeah, how do you actually convert this? This rook can't move.
Yeah, I mean, you need to find a way to activate your pieces. Maybe just queen c1.
Oh my goodness, there was queen e3 trade.
Queen e3 is the idea. No, queen e3 is so easy.
Oh, I mean, my goodness.
Easy when I'm in the commentator seats, obviously.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that was insane. It went from a checkmate in 2 to a opportunity for white to trade queens, which was completely winning. Insane game.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you need to know how to control your emotions, because your brain, I would say, control your brain, because you're at such a time pressure, and you need to be super concentrated and finding the right move. So obviously anyone would find it, did they have more time. So yeah, those scrambles happen all the time, and this is what we are here for, to see them.
Yeah, this is absolutely insane. And now the score is still a 7-point difference, but as we are now 17 minutes on the clock, on the match clock, that is, it becomes much more difficult for Vantika to make a comeback.
Absolutely. I love the center from black. D5, E4, this pawn and f5. You know, that knight f5 is not the same that we saw before. So here, black played really nicely in the opening. Yeah, I can say that.
Yeah, I'm also impressed by Vantika's play here, and ideally would want to capture the knight and capture the pawn on f5 right away, but the queen is attacking the pawn b7, so you gotta be careful for that.
Absolutely, and I am about to say, for the first time in a while, we see in this Nidorf, finally, black's bishop on c5 was stronger than white's bishop on f1, but no bishop anymore.
No bishop anymore, but this knight on f6 is really well placed. I mean, it's not doing much there other than being defending the pawn d5, but that's already a very good reason to be on. I mean, to say that this knight is much better than the bishop, because this bishop is not doing much on f1.
Yeah, that actually doesn't contradict what I have said, which was the white's bishop for the first time is not on d5 where we expect him. He's on g2 on f1. He's super passive.
96. Wow, what a maneuver. Knight g5 now, threatening knight f3 as well as taking on h3.
So well played by Vantika. It looks like black is winning here.
He takes f3 and you're just entering on e1. Queen takes h3 as well, and
first queen takes h3 to avoid king h2.
Yes.
Why did black take on h3 first?
Yeah, okay, it's still winning because of rook
gonna win the rook endgame,
but it's gonna take some time.
Yeah, but I mean, no, now, but it should be easily winning. I mean, easy to say, yeah, easily winning, and then go
and
play.
Then something happens.
10 seconds on your clock.
Yeah. At least they're still around 20 seconds. Typically, they're around like 4
Yeah.
seconds at this stage. But okay, Rook F5 is still tricky, attacking 3
Rook
pawns
B2,
actually.
really well played. Rook B2, protecting this passer, and now B4, and we have to pull. Oh, Rook! Thank you for the Rook.
Wait a second. Where did the Rook go?
I didn't see that, but thank you. I'm taking it. Thank you for the Rook. Let's go. 6 points difference. 14 more minutes. Will Vantika be able to fight back to catch Kateryna?
6 points left for Vantika to, well, she needs to win 6 in a row pretty much because there's 13 minutes left on the clock. Wait a second. What is this opening? B4? Huh?
What? It's in English. It's in English.
Yeah, this is a very new opening for the first time.
Oh yeah, wow. It's about time. how long have we been here? I mean, how long have you been here? It's about time we changed the playlist, ladies and gentlemen.
We've been here for some time now, watching the Grunfeld and the Najdorf. At this point, we're all experts in those openings. You
all
two
of us,
guys
starting
in the
from
chat.
the chat. Okay, bishop is attacked. Bishop c2. Right.
Yeah. This looks really nice. Right, White is just going to castle and then play d4, and White has a comfortable position.
I would prefer White to play d4.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. Thank you. That's it. Being played just for me. And then the bishop comes to b2, and that will be super strong. Really nice bishop. Just watch out the e4 pawn. Correct. Protect it. Not giving our pieces. Wait, what?
Knight takes d5.
And queen on a5 attacking the rook on e1. Did you see that beauty?
Yeah, knight takes d5. Wow, what a beautiful tactic.
Yeah, that's amazing. It wasn't happening on the board, unfortunately.
It wasn't very obvious.
An option?
Bishop takes h6, absolutely. There's a lot of opportunities over there. Take now. Bishop takes h6.
Let's go. It's funny. I haven't calculated anything, but it looks really nice.
And she does it. She's listening.
Yeah. In the Zoom call, you know, we're all there. We're all there.
But yeah, bishop takes h6, and funnily enough, I mean, g takes h6, queen takes h6, and the knight doesn't have many squares, and you have many resources for the attack. You can play e5 whenever you want to, and that looks crushing. So that's why Kateryna did not take the bishop.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, Kateryna understood that, and okay, but Vantika doesn't slow, you know, the mode. She continues with a very fast speed with pushing the pawn up to h6, and now it's about being a little bit careful and should be winning.
Kateryna is so resourceful with this pawn on b3. It's terrifying. Queen b2, checkmate threat. Okay, it was covered by Kateryna, very well done. Yeah. But now the rook is maybe entering.
From the first games that we saw together, it's like Kateryna is just finding all those resources. She's fighting. She's a real fighter. Oh, bishop takes. No?
Yeah, there was bishop takes g5 indeed, and after knight takes, there was queen takes f6. There's so much happening, but that would have been a really beautiful move if it was on the board.
Yeah. Something tells me on the practical level it's super hard here, and that's why we see the evil bar going so crazy.
Apparently, there was rook h7 threatening to take on h6 because the Vantika, no!
No way!
My goodness,
that was totally winning for white.
Oh my goodness, she was completely winning that game.
Yeah, so many misfortunate results for Vantika.
Oh, and she just lost on the clock again, and that goes to show that clock is so important, no matter how winning you are.
Exactly, it's all about clock. Thanks God to the person who invented it in chess.
And we're back to the Najdorf before.
We saw that already, right?
Yeah, we saw exactly this with the pawns traded on b4 and d5.
Yeah, looks very familiar. Okay. Well, you know what? This is why Kateryna is a world champion. Rapid and Blitz. And what else? She's a Grandmaster.
Rapid and Blitz. Yeah, she's a Grandmaster.
Mother of four. That's why she's mother of four. Look at her. She's so fast. She can do everything. Crush everyone in chess and be a great mother and, win some world championships. And we see it here.
That's the key.
Yeah. No, seriously, what do we have here? The same structure as we saw right before with this d5 and e4, but still different, very different, of course. Once again, I give my favorites to black here, but everything is changing fast.
Yeah, this knight on c5 is great, but yeah, after bishop d6, you're almost forced to retreat, and it's a bit hard to see for white where to infiltrate, but now knight d4, knight b5 could be interesting. Rook b4 is being played, putting pressure on the pawn on b7, so looks pretty nice for white.
Yeah, look at this rook that came to b5. We saw that already before, but now white clearly is the one who attacks the weakness on d5, and we can see that.
Right, and now we see knight to c5, which makes a lot of sense because while you're attacking the pawn b7, but b6 is forced, and now, oh, knight e6, okay.
Nice. We're taking the bishop and we're taking the b6 pawn. We won the pawn. Oh, there is even...
Yeah, you can probably
why not?
play rook b7.
Why
and
not?
you will not be able to defend it. Oh, but a6, okay. Oh, but...
there was a better move there? What was the better move?
I'm not entirely sure. It looks very complicated.
And now knight comes to c7, and there is a chance that black can actually take that pawn back on a6. Or b5 is an idea, and we're taking the most dangerous pawn away. Rook
b5,
a6.
yeah, and this looks really good.
Yeah,
for black. Oh, bishop takes b5. That pawn drops as well. So now it becomes a bit unclear.
Yeah, white has a passed pawn b, but black's king is more active. Who's playing for a win here? Yeah, Vantika, of course. Yeah, I mean, objectively position is equal, but Vantika is playing for a win for obvious reasons.
Right. Yeah, there's only 6 minutes left on the match clock. The clock has been ticking down very quickly, so it's pretty much safe to say that Kateryna is winning at this match, but I'm really curious to see if Vantika can still level up the score a little bit.
Oh, look at this. What a nice play. Look at the king on a4. Sorry, it's just cut. It was a wrong direction. It was a completely wrong direction for a king.
Oh my goodness, what is happening?
The king was cut. It would have been better to keep it on e1.
Wow.
That's an easy win.
Right, you can play e2 now, and this king is completely cut off.
But Kateryna will, here Kateryna needs to continue to play because it's about timer. So we'll spend 20 more seconds seeing how black pre-moves in. Like, you need to pre-move to take that pawn. You know what? It doesn't look like pre-moving to me.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't really look like it. And here we see the queen on the board, and I'm expecting resignation. There we go.
Yeah, Kateryna is a gentle woman. She resigns instead of playing until the mate and taking, more time. But she's confident about her position in the match. What is the difference? 6 points. It's too much for 4 minutes, I would say, but never say never.
Yeah, it's safe to say that Kateryna has won the match. Even if she would lose like a couple of games in, the worst case, she can still drag the clock as much as possible. She will not allow that to happen very easily. But props to Vantika. She played really well throughout the entire match. Playing against women's world champion in Rapid and Blitz is not an easy task.
Yeah, and I would also add that it's now the moment to shine for Vantika because Kateryna might be already relaxing and Vantika is out there looking for revenge.
Absolutely. And in this position, we're back to the Grunfeld defense, and this time there's bishop pair on the board, but I do like white's chances more here because the pawns are a bit scattered of black, but okay, black is ahead this pawn, so maybe that balances it out a little bit because, well, can you take this pawn now?
Interesting question. Knight takes c6.
I guess you can just take queen takes c6 and you lose the pawn on a2. I guess that's why it's not great. But at the same time, you can control the square on c5. So white has a lot of compensation, that for sure.
Absolutely. All right. We see some solid play from both sides. I am not sure who is my favorite here. Black is up a pawn, but the pawn is super weak. Also, the bishop is not cool. So imagine we had three tempi, and we would like play rook c1, knight c. No, but not now. There is no
c1. Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's a pity. Yeah.
Oh, that is really unfortunate. Yeah. Yeah, those mistakes just happen. It's also, they've been playing for so long. Imagine they have very little rest between the games. I mean, obviously we have a few breaks between the portions, but between the games, there are no breaks. They play right away on the next game.
Yeah.
So they've been playing for quite some time now, and you can just tell that the exhaustion is coming in.
There is exhaustion, which is one thing. Another thing is tilt. And I know myself that in Blitz, and like when games are being so fast one after another, it's so much easier to tilt than in classical. So if you lose, like we have seen several times, losing a painful game where you were winning and right after comes another loss.
Yep, that's just bound to happen, and it's really difficult to deal with that. Yeah, so in this game, we're back to knight, but a completely different position with the pawn on c5 instead of d6, which allows black to control the d file. But the problem is if he controls the d file, then what's next? Because white is very well defending that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I kind of like the knight on b6. It's my my favorite in this position for sure. But another thing is that black controls the d file. Computer says white is better, but maybe because of the d5 square, as always, our key square.
Perhaps because that knight was so resourceful, but now it's off the board. Okay, white has a pair of bishops, and this knight on d7, it's not able to do much. Like, where can you maneuver it to? Knight f8, knight e6. Okay, she goes for knight b8, knight c6 instead. That's another interesting idea, but yeah, it takes so much time to try to get some improvement in your position.
b4 followed, but there was something wrong about it. We did not manage to see that fast. Everything is changing, and now white is leading again, attacking the b7. Black is super passive, and now position has opened, and this is in white's favor, having two bishops.
All right, so
bishop coming to d5. Look at this. I love it.
Just beautiful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Beautifully played. And it's in these type of positions, like you're playing against a grandmaster, and grandmasters know how to like squeeze this out in like this position. For them it's so easy to play, and it's very rough to play against a grandmaster in such positions, to anyone really, but especially grandmasters. Yeah,
that's gonna be another win for
bishop takes h6. Yeah, no, anything wins.
Bishop h6, such a beautiful idea and an easy one, but no rush. Why do we need? Sure.
Forcing.
Sure.
More forcing, checkmate. Wow. Yeah. And that is actually, Dina, the last game of the 1+1 portion of this match, and that concludes the match. The score is 17.5 for Kateryna, and Fantika scored 9.5 points. Very good result by Fantika, despite losing this match. Both players had amazing fighting skills throughout the entire match. And we will go to a short break, everybody. We will have a short interview with the winner, Kateryna Lagno. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. This is the 2020 Women's Speed Chess Championship hosted by FIDE and Chess.com. See you in a bit. Welcome back, everyone. We have the winner, Grandmaster Kateryna Lagno. Kateryna, how do you feel about the match overall? You had such an amazing match altogether.
Oh, well, of course, I'm very happy. Thanks a lot. I'm happy it's over because I started to get tired and to blunder, but right now I feel much better, of course.
It was so curious to see those openings, Najdorf and Grunfeld. We learned a lot.
No, better you don't, because I think in several games I was just completely. I could resign after the opening just because I mixed up some order of moves in several games. So, and I was much worse. But there's always a fight in this opening, so I tried to to create some problems. And yes, I think it's, by the way, it's very hard to play this line in Blitz. So
yeah, we had some really interesting games, and we definitely learned a lot from the openings. But how did you feel about the start of the match? At the start of the match, it was pretty close. You won a few games on the clock. How did you feel about the 5+1 portion of this match?
I felt like I'm not in the match because I don't play often online chess. So I tried last weeks to play Title Tuesday just to remember how does it feel, but it really didn't help me so much. I think she also was a bit slow. I think she played pretty much well, but she was always low on time, and that's why I started to score some points. But if you want to check the positions we had, it was not in my favor, I think, in the beginning of the match.
And later you started with this plan of putting the knight to c4, knight d2, knight c4, knight e3, knight d5. That was a really nice way. You started gaining advantage more and more there.
Yes, because she didn't play the main line after knight d2, so I decided that it should be better for me, but I don't think I was precise, so maybe I was slightly better, but I think I could play, somehow better than I did. But you don't have time to check your games. Yes, you have only a break, 6 minutes, and you just want to take some water to, not to look at the opening, so you just don't have time. So.
Do you think for the side that is about to lose and needs to fight back, it is a good thing to repeat the same opening over and over again?
but we start. I think we changed a bit. We kept the same openings, but we changed the line some time to times. Well, looks like she just likes to play Nidorf, and I just like to play Grunfeld. So,
so everyone is happy.
Yes, looks like.
All right. In your next match, so you're moving on to the next stage in the Women's Speed Chess Championship. Your next opponent will be the winner of the match, Nana Zagnidze against Humpy Konaru. What are your expectations of this match, and who would you rather play against?
Well, I think I have never played Humpy online chess. So with Nana we played once. Well, I think it will be interesting and a tough match. Doesn't matter who wins. So I will just stay turn, and and I will, of course, I will watch it, and well, just good luck to both players, because I like them both very much. So just we'll see.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Kateryna, for joining us in the interview. Congratulations once again on the amazing performance. It was super exciting to watch the games, and we wish you best of luck in your next match.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dina. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. See you.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, Dina, we have a very awesome match behind us. I mean, that was exciting all over the place. Even though you joined us a bit later, I'm sure you were able to catch a lot of excitement whatsoever.
Absolutely, absolutely. I had to take care of our main producer here at Madrid, but then I was really looking forward to join you, and I'm super happy. I've had an amazing time together with you, watching these strong players, learning from them, and having so much fun. And I'm looking forward to the next match of Kateryna Lagno, to whoever she's gonna play next.
Me too, me too. And before we sign off, let me please remind everybody that right after this show, we will have the I'm Not a GM Speed Chess Championship continue. We will have James Canty III taking on Lawrence Trent, and that is definitely going to be an exciting match. We will have Levi Rosman commentating together with Jeffrey Zhang. So make sure to stick around after this show. You do not want to miss the action in this match, because the winner will be going to the finals facing Eric Rosen. So make sure to stick around as soon as the show is over. You do not want to miss out on this.
And see you soon in Madrid.
See you soon. Thank you so much, Dina. It was a pleasure commentating with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Anna Maya, and see you very soon.
See you, everyone. Thanks for watching. This was the 2022 Women's Speed Chess Championship hosted by FIDE and Chess.com. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry, but we're experiencing some technical difficulties here in the studio. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order before we return back to the broadcast. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here in the studio. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order for the broadcast to return. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here in the broadcast. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get it back. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here on the broadcast. I hope that we can get things in order soon. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry, but we're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here on the broadcast. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll stick with us and be patient as we work to return. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get this back in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. How much longer does this have to go, guys? Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get this in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone.